American TV series, starting to profit from young Sheldon. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226 Birthday. Because the issue was too sensitive, even though the Cooper family had made their position clear, the reporters who were looking for big news still stayed until dark before they were willing to leave. After all the trouble, the Cooper family who returned to the house were not in a very good mood. It can be imagined that, although Sheldon's troubles were temporarily covered up, the sensitive topics surrounding the Cooper family were far from over. After all, you can always believe that a group of reporters can stir up trouble for big news. Okay, Shelley, let's go to dinner. Things have already happened, and at this point, Mary no longer has the mood to continue blaming her youngest son. Instead, looking at the other's pale little face, Mary, as a mother, became a little softer in her tone. Thank God for giving us food, and please bless us to get through this difficult time. After everyone sat down, the daily pre-meal prayer session began at the table. Everyone can eat after the prayer. Mary squeezed out a reluctant smile and greeted everyone. Wait, just as everyone was about to start dinner, Sheldon suddenly stood up. Then, under the inquiring eyes of a group of people, he ran into the kitchen and found the sandwich he had left over from lunch. Then, he returned to the table with the sandwich, took a big bite of bread, chewed for a long time, and said seriously in the surprised eyes of everyone, I think the taste of sweet bread is actually not bad. It turns out that Sheldon's awkward personality is not unchangeable. At least, realizing that he had caused a big disaster this time, he successfully accepted the taste of sweet bread. Thank God. Seeing her youngest son's sensible appearance, Mary felt somewhat comforted. Good news, she no longer has to worry about her youngest son's lunch problem. Then, in the next few days, as everyone worried, some reporters revealed Sheldon's previous remarks in the newspaper for the sake of topicality. The consequence of this behavior is that more reporters who heard the news surrounded Cooper's house. Like a group of flies that can't be driven away. Obviously, these reporters have different ideas and want to continue to expand the matter so as to gain fame and fortune from it. The Cooper family, who were mentally prepared, never mentioned the sensitive topics again after that day. At the same time, in order to deal with the crisis, Grandma Connie also hung the stars and stripes at the door of her house. As for the little Sheldon, who was at the center of the topic, the American uncle's cosplay costume became his regular costume during this period. Moreover, he became smarter and no longer spoke nonsense when he was stopped by reporters. Singing the Stars and Stripes song on the spot became his best choice. After about a week of back and forth, the group of reporters who came after hearing the news finally realized that there was no chance of making big news. Although they were still unwilling, they had no choice but to leave under the strict defense of the Cooper family. The first group of reporters who came took advantage of the fact that the heat of the devil figure group on the spring stage had not yet subsided and once again focused on the gossip of the lives of Regina and several girls. So, the students and teachers of Melford High School also felt the enthusiasm of the reporters at the gate of the campus. In particular, the classmates and teachers of several girls received special care from reporters. After that, more than a week later, as the popularity of the devil figure group subsided, the first batch of reporters who arrived finally left the town of Telford one after another. At the end of February, the Cooper family, who had been tortured for more than half a month, finally returned to peace as the reporters left. Happy birthday to you. On February 26th, little Sheldon also ushered in his 11th birthday. Come and make a wish. Shelley on the table. Mary brought a small cake with 11 candles to her youngest son. I hope I can grow up quickly. Little Sheldon closed his eyes and continued to make a wish. Similarly, I also hope that my family, Mike and Peggy, can be healthy forever. As the candles were blown out, everyone who heard little Sheldon's wish smiled knowingly. Obviously, after experiencing the previous turmoil, little Sheldon finally understood the importance of family. This can also be regarded as a kind of growth. Okay, Shelley, it's time to share the cake. If you want to say who is the happiest today, it must be Mary as a mother. Later, with her help, Sheldon divided the birthday cake into 8 equal parts and sent them to everyone. "Sheldon, I have good news. Do you want to hear it?" Little George asked in a funny way after he got the cake. "What's the good news?" Little Sheldon, who is still a child after all, showed his curiosity. "The good news is..." Little George deliberately kept it a secret and then continued with a smile, "You don't have to wear that strange outfit tomorrow. How about it? Are you happy?" A correct version in the 16 to 9 book forum. Just like Captain M***'s tights, Sheldon's cosplay Uncle M***'s outfit is also very weird in the eyes of ordinary people. Transvestite is not a good adjective. People who are labeled with this label on campus may be isolated at any time. Although Sheldon doesn't care much about other people's opinions, his classmates' frequent and scrutinizing eyes still make him very uncomfortable. Similarly, as an older brother, George will also be very stressed by having a strange brother in school. So it is indeed good news that Sheldon can take off his cosplay clothes. How about it? This birthday gift is good, isn't it? Perhaps to liven up the atmosphere, George laughed after telling the good news. Enough. George Mary looked at her younger son's tense face and called out to her older son, who was forcing himself to be funny. It turns out that even brothers may not have the same sense of humor. George thought that the good news was probably rubbing salt into Sheldon's wound. After all, Sheldon's previous experience was not pleasant. Then, everyone's eyes also came to the face of the little birthday boy today. "George, you're right. This is indeed good news." Although the expression on Sheldon's face did not change significantly, his tone was much lighter. With his statement, the atmosphere of the birthday became relaxed again. "Why, are you worried?" Mike, who was sitting with Peggy and eating cake, noticed the little girl's envious look at Sheldon. "No." Peggy shook her head sensibly. "Don't worry, when it's your birthday in a few days, I promise you will have your own cake." Mike seemed to see through the little girl's thoughts. Peggy's birthday is in March, right around the same time as little Sheldon's. It's not hard to guess that children will inevitably look forward to their birthdays. Moreover, for Peggy, the past year can be regarded as a new life. Therefore, the next birthday has a special meaning for her. "Thank you, Peggy," realizing that someone cares about her, showed a sweet smile and accepted Mike's kindness. Chapter 227 Birthday continued. Time flies, and it is mid-March. Telford, a small town in the southern state, is located in the temperate and subtropical regions. After the early spring, the temperature has risen rapidly. Compared with more than half a month ago, when people still needed to wear thin coats when going out, students wearing short-sleeved t-shirts can be seen everywhere in Melford College. Taking advantage of the heat of the Super Bowl in early February and the warming weather, various middle schools in Texas are also preparing for their own spring football invitational tournaments. The same is true for Melford High School. Because of the outstanding performance of the Summer League last year, Melford students this year have paid more attention and expectations to the school's football team. This is indeed the case. If the Melford football team can maintain last year's strong momentum, they are likely to help the school lock in the status of a strong sports school in one fell swoop. Therefore, this year's spring invitational tournament is also a good opportunity for the Melford football team to make history. Mike, the invitational tournament will start in 2 days. What do you think? At the school gate, Captain Aaron stopped Mike, who was about to leave school and go home. The rugby captain, who was in the expectation of everyone, looked a little tired at the moment. Considering the team's performance, he had bothered Mike a lot during this period. "I'm willing to contribute to the team, but the coach has not replied." Mike did not mind playing a few friendly matches to help the school win more honors, as long as he could. Moreover, after the start of the school, he also went to the rugby team several times, but he never met the current head coach of the team. Therefore, the matter of returning to the team has not been settled. Coach Wayne. When mentioning the current head coach of the team, Captain Aaron's face became more solemn, and he looked like he was about to say something but stopped. "Forget it. I will communicate with the coach about your situation. You wait for my news." After a short silence, Captain Aaron gave his own solution. "Okay, contact me anytime if there is any situation." Mike waved his hand and walked out of the school with Peggy. To be honest, with professional level 4 rugby skills and a physical strength that is 5 times that of ordinary people, Mike is not worried about his condition in the game at all. Rugby, a sport that competes with physical talent, can be said to have been completely mastered by him. Mike After leaving the campus for a distance, Peggy suddenly called Mike. "What's wrong, Peggy?" Mike stopped and turned to look at the little girl next to him with an expectant look. "Don't you have anything to say to me?" Peggy asked nervously with her hands behind her back. Today is March 17th, Peggy's birthday. She is still thinking about the birthday promise Mike made to her before. Should I tell you something?" Mike pretended to be puzzled. The little girl saw Mike's performance and thought he really forgot her birthday, so her mood was visibly depressed. "It's okay, let's go home." After glaring at the other party angrily, Peggy took her short legs and walked forward without looking back. Disappointment and grievance surged in her heart at the same time. Facts have proved that no matter how mature Peggy usually behaves, she is still a child and cannot hide her emotions well. In the back, Mike, who made a joke, saw the little girl's reaction and quickly put away the idea of teasing her. Then, he took out the small gift he had prepared long ago from his pocket and pretended to be surprised and shouted, "Peggy, is this what you dropped?" The little girl turned around and saw the exquisite small gift box in Mike's hand, and then her eyes showed surprise. "I knew you didn't forget." Peggy turned and ran to Mike and gave him a big hug. It doesn't matter what the gift is, the little girl cares more about the other person's intention. "Okay, Peggy." Mike patted the little girl on the back, put her down, and said with a smile, "Happy birthday, Peggy." Because of her family, the little girl who should have been innocent always looks mature like a little adult. And after a long time of getting along, Mike also saw that Peggy's original personality was not like this. Therefore, it is not a good thing for her to suppress her emotions for a long time. It was because of this situation that Mike's joke happened before. On the other side, Peggy, who had calmed down, also realized that she was a little emotional before. "What's in it?" Peggy, who was not used to this feeling, took the gift box from Mike and immediately changed the subject. "You'll know after you open it." Mike didn't mean to tease the little girl anymore. "You know, it often takes a long time to develop a personality. This is a butterfly." Peggy opened the gift box and saw the butterfly-shaped hairpin inside. The clever design makes the wings of this butterfly hairpin inlaid with diamonds move when it is shaken. Under the sunlight, it reflects the colorful light. "How is it? Does it look good?" Peggy asked happily, after taking a few steps with the hairpin. "Very beautiful, it suits you very well," Mike replied with a smile. As a grown man, Mike actually doesn't have that kind of vision. This gift was prepared by him, Torina, before. Now it seems that the effect is very good. A correct version of the book in 1619. "Thank you, Mike." After receiving the compliment, Peggy looked happier. "Let's go, we should go back. Grandma Connie and others at home have prepared a birthday cake for you." Seeing the happy look of the little girl, Mike's mood inexplicably improved by 3 points. At home, after knowing that today was Peggy's birthday, Grandma Connie took the initiative to take on the task of making the cake. Of course, on this special day, there was another surprise waiting for Peggy. On the road, accompanied by the warm sun, 2 figures, one big and one small, walked towards home. When the 2 entered the Cooper's house, the restaurant was already filled with rich food. "Happy birthday, Peggy." With blessings, Grandma Connie and the Cooper family, holding the cake, came to Peggy one after another. "Before making a wish, we have guests coming." Grandma Connie gestured to Peggy to look to the side. "Happy birthday, our little angel." Barry and his wife came out of the side hall with their eldest daughter. Mom, Dad, and Erica. Peggy came forward in surprise and hugged the family members one by one. The reconciled Barry and his wife looked in good condition, with happy smiles on their faces. Erica, who was standing next to them, also changed her previous rebellious style. After changing back into a decent outfit, she looked like a lady. The harmonious atmosphere of the family can be said to be the most special gift Peggy received on this birthday. "Okay, Peggy, come over and make a wish." After the little girl hugged her family, Grandma Connie greeted her. Then, under the gaze of everyone, Peggy came to the cake, closed her eyes, and silently made a wish, and then blew out the candles. Peggy, what wish did you make? Grandma Connie asked curiously. It's a secret. It won't work if you tell it out. Peggy looked at her family, then at Mike and others, and answered with a smile. There is indeed such a saying, that the wish you made cannot be told to others, otherwise it will not work. This is unfair. Little Sheldon, who had just said his wish on his birthday, protested strongly. There must always be a conspicuous bag at a successful party. Looking at the funny and aggrieved look of little Sheldon, everyone on the side also laughed kindly. After celebrating their little daughter, Barry and his wife had no intention of leaving that day. They resumed their sweetness and regarded this birthday celebration for their little daughter as a relaxing trip. So, tonight they planned to go to a nearby hotel to spend some time alone. As for their eldest daughter Erica, she was entrusted to Connie's grandmother to take care of her. Chapter 228 Spring Invitational Tournament. It was Saturday, the day of the Melford Invitational Tournament. Although the game was on the weekend, the playground was still full of students who came to support the school's football team in order to witness history. There were also some enthusiastic spectators in the crowd who held up signs such as Melford, come on. Judging from the warm atmosphere on the scene, Melford High School did have some momentum as a strong sports school. In order to warm up, the opponent chosen by Melford for the first invitational tournament was the surrounding Shanghai High School football team, a team at the bottom of the state league. Mike, I'm sorry. I'm afraid you will have to wait for a while before you can join the team. Captain Aaron said apologetically outside the lively crowd. It's okay, I can see that you have tried your best. Mike shook his head and did not blame the other party. Then, he turned his head and looked at the preparation area next to the stadium and asked curiously, is it because of the coach? At this moment, Coach Wayne was sitting in the preparation area with his head down, exuding a depressed low pressure all over his body. That indifferent look was completely like two different worlds from the lively crowd around him. Captain Aaron heard this and looked at the crowd. Then he explained insincerely, Coach Wayne is not in good shape because of family matters, but I believe he will adjust soon. Because of the good results last year, many new players joined the team, including many strong and healthy ones. In this case, even if Coach Wayne's level is not as good as Coach George, as long as he can perform the duties of a head coach, the overall strength of the Melford team will not be bad this year. However, Coach Wayne did not seize this opportunity. Because of private matters at home, he has not managed the team seriously for a long time. Even during the necessary practice time every afternoon, it is difficult to see the head coach on the court. And this time, Mike's application to return to the team was also ignored by him. It can be said that the Melford rugby team has become a mess because of Wayne's inaction. Captain Aaron, who has seen all these situations, would not be realistic to say that he has no resentment in his heart. This big boy who is passionate about rugby must be in torment now. Just as Mike and the other person were chatting, a bus carrying the football players of Shanghai High School slowly drove into the Melford campus. It seemed that they knew they would become stepping stones for the other team, and the football players of Shanghai High School who got off the bus were not very excited. At this moment, the home advantage of the Melford team was fully revealed. Even though the students on the playground did not boo the Shanghai High School football team, the high intensity and lively atmosphere around them still made the fighting spirit of the people of Shanghai High School drop again. Children, don't be discouraged. The head coach of Shanghai High School clapped his hands, attracted the attention of all the players, and encouraged. Melford was a top 10 team last year. Playing against them will give us more experience. And as a challenger, we may not necessarily lose this time, so, everyone, please cheer up. Shanghai High School. After encouraging the players, the head coach of Shanghai High School took the lead in extending his hand. Then, the players of Shanghai High School also tried to put their hands together. Come on. Shanghai High School, come on. Amid the eye-catching shouts, the players of Shanghai High School regained some fighting spirit. Seeing this situation, the head coach of Shanghai High School also smiled. Then, he arranged for the players to go to the playground to familiarize themselves with the venue and prepare for the next game. Obviously, the head coach of Shanghai High School did not give up this game. Mike, who was at the back of the crowd, saw Shanghai High School and others enter the field, and said to Captain Aaron beside him, "The game is about to start, and you should also prepare. Okay, we'll talk about your business later." Captain Aaron obviously also attached great importance to this invitational tournament. After greeting Mike, he turned and walked towards the stadium. As the players of both sides finished warming up, the time came to 10 o'clock in the morning. After watching the two teams appear on the midfield line, the audience, who realized that the game was about to start, immediately gave a huge cheer. Then, in the coin guessing session, after Melford took the lead in getting the ball, the audience who supported them outside the field created waves of sound with their enthusiasm. This shows how popular rugby is in the local area. In the field, because Coach Wayne did not arrange tactics, Captain Aaron could only organize the players and continue to use the Wolfpack tactics of last year. Among the old players, Sam replaced Mike's role last year and became another core of the team. Beep. As the game began, the Melford players who were familiar with the dual core tactics still retained a certain tacit understanding. Under the cover of a group of supporting players, Aaron and Sam also rushed into the opponent's back half. In the 1691 Book 1 bar, there is no wrong version. Afterwards, facing the opponent's second line of defense, the rugby was passed several times by the two, and finally Captain Aaron rushed into the opponent's end zone with the rugby in his arms. Melford team plus 6 points. Captain Aaron, who achieved the first round of touchdowns, excitedly threw the rugby into the sky and then let out a huge roar. Looking at his appearance, it seems that he wants to vent all the depression during this period. The audience on the sidelines watched the wonderful performance of their own team, and they were also infected with the passion and gave warm applause and cheers. After the celebration, Captain Aaron on the field also took advantage of the victory. In the second chance to score, he cooperated with the players and got the achievement of the second touchdown, again 6 points plus 2 points. The Melford football team got a huge advantage of 8 points in the first round of offense. With the more intense cheers of the Melford students outside the field, everything seemed to be moving in a good direction. Don't be discouraged, kids. We still have a chance. After the exchange of the ball, the head coach of Shanghai High School stood on the sidelines and continued to cheer for his players. Looking at Coach Wayne, he was sitting in the preparation area, and he looked like he was wandering in the sky, and his attention was still not on the game. Defense has never been the strong point of the Melford football team. In the next game, Shanghai High School also relied on the steady and steady sparrow tactics to get a field goal. Shanghai High School plus 3 points. The ball was exchanged again, and the score of 8:3 seemed acceptable to Melford High School. Just as they were about to continue to expand the score, the head coach of Shanghai High School called a timeout. Listen, kids, Melford is not invincible. After a round of offense and defense, the head coach of Shanghai High School discovered the weakness of the Melford team. In the next round, I want you to pay attention to that big guy. Don't be afraid of collisions. His flexibility is not high. Yes, the weakness discovered by the head coach of Shanghai High School was Sam, one of the two core players in the Melford team. As a power running back, Sam did not have the flexibility of Mike in the Wolfpack tactics, so there were loopholes in this tactic. The head coach of Shanghai High School was very keen to grasp this point. Strictly speaking, at this point in the game, the competition was the adaptability of the head coaches of both sides. It was just a pity that Coach Wayne's mind was not on the game, and naturally he could not give the players the advice they should have. Chapter 229 Spring Invitational Tournament continued. Go go go. Keep an eye on that big guy. Don't be afraid of collisions. After the timeout, the head coach of Shanghai High School wandered outside the sideline, loudly reminding his players to pay attention to defense. After half a year of growth, Sam has grown a few centimeters taller and seems to be a little stronger. It can be seen that this kid does have some talent for playing rugby. However, as the game continued, he was about to attack with the ball when he was suddenly doubled by several players of Shanghai High School in front of the midfield. In this situation, Sam, who was unable to beat four hands with two fists, had a very difficult time advancing. Then, under the crazy interference of the opponent's defensive tackle and cornerback, he almost lost the ball and could only fall to the ground with the football in his arms to protect the ball. Beep. The offensive end was blocked, and Melford lost an offensive opportunity. In rugby games, the offensive team has 4 opportunities to organize an offense without losing the ball, which is called the fourth gear offense. When a team is intercepted 4 times in a row on the offensive end and the football advances less than 10 yards, it needs to hand over the ball and become the defensive side. At this time, the Melford football team only lost an offensive opportunity, and the situation was not that bad. "Are you okay, Sam?" Captain Aaron, who was in the center line, came to the right half and pulled Sam up. Seeing the opponent's slightly embarrassed appearance, he continued, "It seems that they have targeted you. When you have a chance, pass the ball to me." The opponent's intention is very obvious. As the team's quarterback, Captain Aaron also guessed the opponent's idea. There is no winning tactic on the court. Shanghai High School puts the focus of defense on Sam, and naturally the defense strength of other players on the Melford team will decrease. Captain Aaron also took this into consideration and thought about taking advantage of Sam to attract the opponent's defensive strength while leading the team to open up the situation. "You know, football has never been a one-person game." Understood. Sam glared at the opponent who had just intercepted him and answered in a muffled voice. He is simple-minded and well-developed, and he also knows that he is not suitable for considering too complicated tactics, so he immediately agreed to the captain's arrangement. As for what he thinks in his heart, I'm afraid only he knows. "Come on," Captain Aaron encouraged Sam again, and returned to his original position in the middle line. The game started again, with Sam holding the ball for the second gear offense. "Go up and stop him. Don't let him have a chance to pass the ball." The head coach of Shanghai High School on the sidelines reminded the players again loudly. Obviously, the head coach also saw through Captain Aaron's intention in a very short time. Then, with Shanghai High School's defense strengthened again, Sam's passing routes were all blocked. Sam, who was squeezed in the middle and had no chance to break through and no chance to pass the ball, was irritated as he saw that the 10-second stop time was about to expire. In the end, at the moment when the stop time came, he hugged the football and slammed into the opponent who was intercepting in front of him. He took the initiative to adopt a lose-lose style of play. The sudden fierce confrontation on the field also made the audience outside the field exclaim and cheer. In this confrontation, although Sam fell down, he also used his strong body to knock over the opponent's 2 defensive tackles. Judging from the scene, the Melford football team did not lose in momentum. This is also the reason why the audience cheered outside the stadium. However, people who really understand football can see that the situation of the Melford team is not good as long as they pay a little attention. The offensive rhythm of the Melford team was obviously disrupted by 2 consecutive obstacles on the offensive end. Little George and his team need to change their tactics, otherwise they are likely to lose. Peggy, who was watching the game with Mike on the sidelines, expressed her own opinion. Although Peggy usually doesn't pay much attention to football games, her smart brain still allows her to easily analyze the situation on the field. The Melford players are obviously better in terms of individual strength. However, in the absence of the team's ability to respond on the spot, the players look like a pile of loose sand. Compared with Shanghai High School, which is slightly inferior in overall strength, but has gradually been twisted into a rope, the Melford football team is actually not dominant. Now, if you want to break this dilemma, the head coach's ability to respond will be tested. Mike turned his head again and looked at Coach Wayne, who was lowering his head in the team's rest area, and shook his head speechlessly. If the Melford team really loses this invitational game, then the inaction of the team coach will have to bear a large part of the responsibility. On the field, Captain Aaron pulled up Sam, who fell again, patted his arm, and encouraged him a few words, and then the game started again. Next, in the third attack of the Melford team, Sam finally threw the football out of the high position. Captain Aaron, who successfully got the ball, lived up to the trust, and then broke through the double defense of the opponent's linebacker and gorilla guard, and rushed to the opponent's end zone. In the 16-9 book, the correct version, the Melford team scored 6 points again. The 14-3 lead also caused waves of cheers from the Melford students who supported the school team outside the field. However, in the cheers, a few people have noticed that the Melford football team's offensive play this time is unreasonable. They seem to have put all the winning hands on the team's dual cores. This situation is very dangerous. After all, People's State always has ups and downs. The way Melford scored just now was more like taking advantage of the opponent's carelessness to score a sneak attack, which was somewhat accidental. Don't worry, kids. The head coach of Shanghai High School did not look frustrated, even though they lost another 6 points. Along the sideline, the head coach was still reminding the players loudly, "Linebackers and strong defenders, pay attention to your own positions. I need you to keep an eye on the opponent's quarterback." After a series of observations, the head coach of Shanghai High School also clarified his own defensive strategy for Melford's dual core tactics. That is, the defensive focus of his team is divided into 2 parts. The first line of defense is composed of defensive tackles, with the goal of intercepting Sam near the midfield. The second line of defense is composed of linebackers, strong defenders and guerrilla defenders, with the goal of forcing the opponent's quarterback to stop in the backfield. Then, in rounds of offensive and defensive battles, the players of Shanghai High School gradually became familiar with the strategy of their head coach through running in. Before the end of the second quarter, the players of Shanghai High School also successfully restricted the dual core of Melford with tenacious execution. At halftime, although the Melford team was still ahead in the score, more spectators had already noticed that their situation was not good. The extinguishing of the dual core combat power made the Melford team tend to be suppressed in terms of the overall situation and momentum. In order to change this unfavorable situation, the Melford team needs to quickly find a new tactic that is more suitable for dealing with the current bad situation. However, Coach Wayne, who the Melford team can rely on, is still in a state of wandering and cannot provide any help to the team at all. Therefore, during the halftime break in the Melford team's rest area, the players who did not have the help of the coach were a little confused in the face of the current unfavorable situation. In the second quarter of the game, Captain Aaron, who was also given special attention, was constantly wiping the sweat from his forehead because of excessive physical exhaustion. The expression on his face was both tired and confused. At the same time, in the rest area of Shanghai High School on the other side, the head coach was emphasizing tactics to the players. Compared to the disadvantageous start at the beginning, the players of Shanghai High School, who now have hope of winning, now look very excited. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 Gossip. The halftime break seemed to be the dividing line between the two teams. After the third quarter of the second half, Shanghai High School, which was in great shape, blew the horn of counterattack. Although the Melford team occasionally scored on the offensive end thanks to the personal strength of Captain Aaron and Sam, the overall situation was still caught up by the opponent little by little. Finally, at the end of the third quarter, Shanghai High School completed the reversal with a small difference. In the following fourth quarter, Captain Aaron could only watch the opponent slowly pull away due to physical reasons. Beep. As the final whistle sounded, the Melford players who had ended their suffering left the field in disappointment. The players of Shanghai High School, who won the final victory, cheered around the field and enjoyed the joy of the winner. You know, they were a team at the bottom of the state competition before, but now they have miraculously defeated the top 10 teams in the state competition last year. Such a feat is indeed something worth showing off for the players of Shanghai High School. Unlike the enthusiastic celebration on the field, the audience outside the field was silent at this moment. In fact, the atmosphere outside the field has not been very good since the end of the third quarter. Even many Melford students left the school depressed not long after the start of the fourth quarter. The feeling of greater hope and greater disappointment is not pleasant. On the side of Shanghai High School, there was no echo from the audience outside the field, and their celebration did not last long before it stopped. After all, it was an away game, and jumping too much would easily get beaten. The audience outside the field who witnessed their own loss were not as stable as they looked. Then, according to the process, it was also the handshake and exchange session for the head coaches of both sides. Of course, Coach Wayne was not in the mood to communicate. After simply shaking hands with the other head coach, he hurriedly left the field. The head coach of Shanghai High School was in a good mood because of the victory and did not say much. Then, he organized the still excited players and left Melford College by bus. This invitational tournament is now over. Do you need help? As the audience left one after another, Mike stayed and walked to Aaron, who was cleaning the playground. Coach Wayne left in a hurry and did not arrange the matters after the game. So the task of cleaning the field naturally fell on Aaron and others. Originally, there would be enthusiastic students to do these chores, but the performance of the rugby team this time was not satisfactory. Therefore, no volunteers were willing to stay and help the team deal with the aftermath. Seeing Mike approaching, Captain Aaron, who had just lost the game, had a very complicated look in his eyes. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he said, "I will go to Coach Wayne next Monday. If he still doesn't solve your problem, then I will not be the captain anymore." In this game, Melford can be said to have lost very badly. Although there may be many reasons, compared with the strong team last year, Mike's role is also prominent. After all, everyone has seen Mike's help to the team last year. In order to restore the team's strength, Captain Aaron also intends to fight this time. Don't be impulsive, Aaron. My matter is not urgent. We can discuss it slowly, Mike persuaded. Aaron will graduate from high school in half a year, and the identity of the team's quarterback and captain will allow him to get certain preferential treatment when choosing a university later. So it is not a wise thing to resign from the position of captain now. No, this is not just your business. Coach Wayne's current state has affected the normal operation of the team. If he can't change his attitude, there is no point in me being the captain. It can be seen that Aaron really likes football, and it is precisely because of this that he has a lot of opinions about Coach Wayne's inaction. The captain is right. This is not just your business. The team needs to change. Little George, who was paying attention to the situation here, immediately echoed. Because his father is a football coach, little George also has a special feeling for this sport. At the same time, many old players who were silently paying attention to the situation here also came behind Captain Aaron. The actual actions showed their attitude. For a time, the team led by Captain Aaron vaguely had some intention of going to Coach Wayne to force him to abdicate. To be honest, Coach Wayne's performance during this period is indeed unpopular. Mike, although I don't know what's wrong with the football team, I think their courage is worth encouraging. Peggy, who was beside Mike, also said in a low voice. The little girl also saw the struggle of the Melford players in today's game. They were obviously stronger and had a chance to win the game, but they lost the game for various reasons. A perfect version of the book in 1619. In the face of this unwillingness, the attitude of seeking change is not wrong and worthy of admiration. Okay, I know. Mike looked at Aaron and others and said, "Remember to call me when you meet Coach Wayne on Monday." Okay, it's settled. Captain Aaron smiled and decided it. After that, everyone divided the work and began to clean the playground. The scoreboard and protective equipment used in the game need to be put away again, and the garbage left by the audience on the playground also needs to be cleaned out. Mike and Peggy were collecting the banners of support thrown by the audience on the sidelines. Mike, do you know that Coach Wayne is currently in the process of divorcing his wife? On the other side, George, who was picking up trash on the playground, took the time to come up to Mike and talk about the coach's gossip. Is that so? No wonder he looks so bad. Mike was a little surprised. As far as he knew, Coach Wayne loved his wife very much, and from the information he had revealed in the past, the couple had a very good relationship. Unexpectedly, they would end up getting divorced. In this way, Coach Wayne's recent poor performance was also due to some reasons, and even a little sympathetic. There is no such thing as a wall that is impenetrable. Coach Wayne's family troubles were also widely spread in the team. As an insider, George continued to gossip. I heard that the reason Coach Wayne wanted to divorce this time was because he accidentally caught his wife cheating. It's really pitiful. George, who was originally prepared to gossip, skipped the process after seeing Peggy next to him. Coach Wayne is really unlucky to encounter such a thing. Mike nodded in agreement. This also makes sense why Aaron and others were so tolerant of Coach Wayne's inaction before. If it weren't for the loss of this game, they would probably have tolerated it even longer. It's because what Coach Wayne encountered was really terrible, and no man could accept it. Alas, I don't know how long it will take Coach Wayne to recover. Apart from his dereliction of duty at work, little George showed sympathy for Coach Wayne. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Mike cut off the topic. After all, it is very rude to talk about such things behind people's backs, not to mention that there is a little girl next to them. Okay. Little George, who had satisfied some of his desire to talk, did not continue the topic. Then, the two people on the playground picked a light topic and started chatting again. At this time, a team of student union members came out of the teaching building and walked towards the playground. Chapter 231 Conditions. The student union president who took the lead was a capable person. He first arranged for the student union members behind him to help the football team clean the playground, and then came to Mike alone. Mike, the principal asked you to go to his office and said he had something to discuss with you. The student union president conveyed the message for the principal. Got it, Mike nodded. At the same time, he had already guessed that Principal Tom's visit to him might be related to the bad invitational game today. Peggy, stay here for a while, and I will come back to find you after I'm done. Mike told the little girl, said hello to little George, and then walked towards the teaching building. Because it was the weekend, the teaching building seemed empty. It didn't take Mike long to successfully reach the principal's office upstairs. Principal, what do you want to talk to me about? Although he had already guessed in his heart, Mike still asked one more question. You watched today's game. Aaron and his team's performance was not very satisfactory. Principal Tom went straight to the point and continued, so, I hope you can return to the team. Like the students who came to the school to cheer for the team today, Principal Tom was also very disappointed with the result of the previous football team's game. As a principal who is about to retire, he cares more about the reputation of the school than anyone else. This mentality is probably driven by the sense of responsibility to stand his last shift. As long as you are willing to return to the team, the school will give you another sports scholarship at its discretion. Principal Tom behind the desk did not give Mike much time to react before he said his bargaining chip. Mike, who has a place in the school's top students, already has a study scholarship this year. Now according to the principal, as long as he is willing to return to the team, he can easily get another sports scholarship. Add together, it's 2 rewards. Obviously, the school did not intend to take advantage of Mike's labor this time. Once the agreement is reached, it will be a win-win situation. Mike is not short of pocket money now because of the stock market, but who would complain about having too much money? Moreover, he was planning to return to the court to play, so he agreed, no problem, I'm willing to contribute to the school. However, I also have a small request. After getting Mike's reply, Principal Tom smiled and said, as long as you are willing to return to the team, I will tell Coach Wayne to let you return to the team as soon as possible. Now, tell me your request. I want George to continue to be the head coach of the football team. Mike said his true intention. He often went to Cooper's house for meals, and he could fully feel George's love for football. If conditions permit, he doesn't mind helping him, which can be regarded as a return to the Cooper family for taking care of him during this period. George. Principal Tom fell into deep thought. The school expelled George, who led the team to achieve good results, because of the sponsors matter last year, which was a bit sorry for him. Moreover, Principal Tom had promised last year that he would recruit him back after the storm. Maybe it was because of his old age, or the situation of the football team was very good before, so Principal Tom forgot his previous promise. The town of Telford is not that big, and as a small place, it values personal connections. Since Mike mentioned George, Principal Tom did not think for long and simply said, your request is very reasonable. The school can rehire George as a coach. However, I need to consider the position of head coach again. George has been away from the school for half a year. No one knows whether his teaching level has declined in such a long time. So to be on the safe side, Principal Tom also plans to observe him first. The best case scenario is that Coach George's level has not declined. Then he only needs to adapt to the position of assistant coach for a period of time, and then he can be promoted to the head coach of the team. There is a buffer zone for this kind of thing, which is generally good for George and the school. but Mike knows that George has never given up paying attention to football in the past 6 months. He often analyzes football game tactics in front of the TV, so his level is unlikely to decline too much. And to put it bluntly, even if Coach George's coaching level has declined, he is definitely more suitable for the team than Coach Wayne today. The professional accomplishments of the two are not on the same level. I can guarantee that George is definitely more suitable to be the head coach of the Melford team now. After considering various situations, Mike became a guarantor for George. Seeing Mike's solemn look, Principal Tom fell into deep thought again. The teachers in the school knew little about Coach Wayne's family affairs. As the saying goes, small places pay more attention to human relations. It is precisely for this reason that Coach Wayne has received a lot of tolerance. But his recent performance is too outrageous, and the school's tolerance for him seems to be coming to an end. How do you prove that what you said is true? Principal Tom asked. Based on Coach Wayne's situation, Principal Tom also thinks George is more attractive. But now, he still wants a more specific reason to convince himself, of course, to convince other people in the school. How about the next invitational tournament? Mike said calmly. Next weekend's invitational tournament, I will ask Coach George to come and watch the game. I believe he will use practical actions to prove that he has the ability to take over as the head coach of the team. Principal Tom's current attitude obviously recognizes George's identity as a coach. However, if he wants to regain the position of head coach in one fell swoop, George still needs a chance to prove himself. Very good, I'll leave this to you. I'm waiting for you to surprise me, Principal Tom said with a smile. No problem. Mike took on the task without any pressure. In fact, this matter is not difficult to handle. George has put too much effort into the Melford football team. As long as he sees the current poor situation of the team, he will definitely help. Check out the correct version in 16,191 book 1 bar. So, Mike only needs to bring the other party to school next weekend to complete the task easily. After that, after finalizing the details of the plan, Mike left the principal's office. When he returned to the playground, it had been cleaned up. The football players and the student union members who came to help had also left, leaving only Captain Aaron, George and Peggy. Mike, what does the principal want to see you about? Captain Aaron obviously knew the reason why Mike left, and he stayed here out of concern for his friends. The principal invited me to return to the team, and I have agreed. So, we don't have to go to Coach Wayne next Monday. Mike replied with a smile. Great. Aaron clenched his fists hard, and a smile broke out on his face. Aaron, who will graduate in half a semester, now hopes to see the team get better. In this way, he can also rest assured to put a perfect end to his high school football career. Mike's joining makes all this possible. Is that all? No other good news? Captain Aaron, who put down his burden, also noticed the mysterious expression on Mike's face. This kind of expression usually means that there are other things hidden in his heart. There is indeed another good news. You will know it at the next invitational tournament. Mike deliberately kept it a secret. It turns out that everyone hates the Riddler, but everyone likes to be a Riddler. It is really interesting to watch others scratching their heads. Okay, I'll just treat this as a surprise you prepared for me. Seeing Mike enjoying being a Riddler, Aaron didn't hesitate too much. Then, he asked about the thing he cared about most. So, will you participate in the invitational tournament next week? No. Mike shook his head and continued. I will officially join the team as a player after the next invitational tournament. This was something he had discussed with the principal before. Mike also had some thoughts. After all, with his current strength, he would definitely lead the Melford team to victory as long as he played. However, this would naturally not show Coach George's ability. Principal Tom probably considered this situation and agreed to Mike's proposal in the previous negotiations. It seems that, in order to welcome your return, we have to work harder next week. Captain Aaron, who has an easygoing personality, did not think much about it. Afterwards, as noon approached, several people on the playground also walked home separately. Chapter 232 George returns. On the weekends at the Cooper family, the task of taking care of the children fell on George. At this time, he was lying on the sofa, drinking beer comfortably, while watching the replay of this year's Super Bowl on TV. Similarly, he had heard the news that the Melford football team started the invitational tournament today. When George and the other two came back, George pretended to be indifferent and asked, "George, how was the game today?" Although he was treated unfairly last year, George has always been paying attention to the development of the team. The team is like his child. Judging from the team's results last year, this team that he has devoted so much effort to has already shown a trend of taking off. Not very good. Lost to Shanghai High School by 11 points. George answered truthfully. What? George, who was about to hear the good news, could hardly believe his ears. He sat up straight and said in disbelief, "How is this possible? What is Wayne doing?" George also knew the situation of Shanghai High School. It was a completely inferior team in the surrounding area. So in his opinion, with the current strength of the Melford football team, even if the players played the game with their eyes closed, they would not lose to the opponent. Coach Wayne is busy divorcing his wife. Because of the loss, George Jr. was also a little resentful of the current coach of the team, so he did not hesitate to tell all the gossip about the other party. Well, okay, after hearing about Coach Wayne's recent experience, George, who is also a middle-aged man, still sympathized with him, so he did not comment too much. Then, after taking a big sip of beer, he asked his eldest son, "Tell me the details of today's game." Seeing that his father had something to ask of him, George Jr. stared at the beer in the other's hand. The meaning is self-evident. George immediately understood his eldest son's thoughts and then handed him a bottle of beer and reminded him, "Be smart, don't let your mother see it later." George, who successfully got the beer, told him the details of today's game truthfully. "You deserve to lose." George, who had listened to the reenactment, analyzed, "When Shanghai High School adopted a local prevention and control strategy, you should have changed your tactics. Aaron could have used a long pass in the midfield to send the ball to the opponent's backfield. Then the guard would cover the wide receiver or running back, and there would be a chance to bypass the opponent's second line of defense. And I remember that the team had a lot of good new players last year, and it's been half a year, and you didn't give them a chance to play." George is a professional. With only limited information, he successfully found a way for Melford to solve the dilemma. At that time, the situation of the Melford football team was that only Captain Aaron and Sam needed to swap positions to break down the two lines of defense of Shanghai High School. If it doesn't work, you can also send newcomers to try their luck when they are at a disadvantage in the third quarter. Mike, who was sitting with Peggy, saw George's unwilling expression and asked, "If you were asked to direct this game, what would you do?" "If it were me." George thought about it carefully and said, "Based on the current situation of the Melford football team, I would divide them into two groups in advance. Because of last year's good performance, the Melford football team now has about 100 members. With such a background, it is fully capable of selecting talents and dividing the team into offensive and defensive groups. For the defensive team, Sam can form a defensive line with him as a core. He is more suitable to be a defensive tackle than the running back." George continued with a clear mind. "A good defensive team can give the team more opportunities for trial and error. As for the offensive team, Aaron's ability is not bad, and most teams can't stop him." At this point, George deliberately looked at Mike. Based on last year's performance, George expected that Mike was the best candidate for quarterback in his mind. Because he still had deep feelings for the team, George's analysis this time was also done in a particularly detailed manner. The mood reached this point. Mike also took the opportunity to invite the other party. "Next week's game, do you want to go to the scene to watch it together?" George did not expect Mike to invite him under such circumstances, and said uncomfortably, "Let's talk about it later." It is impossible for him to say that he does not want to go to the scene to watch the game. However, since he was expelled from the team, George's life has not been very satisfactory. With a loser mentality, he is now afraid of embarrassing himself in his state at school. The more he cares, the more afraid he is. "Okay, I will come to call you before the next game." Seeing that the other party was not sincere, Mike directly helped the other party make a decision. Time flashed to Monday, and students could be seen everywhere in the school talking about the football team invitational game last weekend. The deeper the love, the more severe the blame. The poor performance of the Melford football team also made the players clear As the head coach of the team, Wayne could not escape, and many embarrassing stories were also dug up by the students. Even his family affairs were pulled out and ridiculed. However, after people vented their dissatisfaction, their attention was still focused on the next invitational match of the school football team. After all, it was their own team. At this time, many people began to miss Mike. Anyone with a discerning eye could see the contribution he made to the team last year. In this atmosphere, time came to the weekend again, the day when the second invitational match of the Melford football team started. When Mike came to Cooper's house, George had already put on a sports short-sleeved shirt and was obviously ready to watch the game on site. Next to him were Missy, who changed into a cool little skirt, and the reluctant little Sheldon. As for little George, he had already gone to school in advance. "Let's go." Mike hugged Missy, who rushed over enthusiastically and said to everyone with a smile. A correct version in a book bar on 16:9. Wait, when it was time to set off, George became a little nervous again. After showing an apologetic look, he returned to his room. Not long after, George, wearing a big coat and a peaked cap, appeared in front of everyone again. "Okay, let's go." George, who wrapped himself up, seemed to have found a sense of security. However, in Texas at the end of March, the outdoor temperature was already very high, and deliberately wearing a big coat was a bit conspicuous. Seeing the other party's appearance of covering his ears and stealing the bell, Mike shook his head slightly and finally didn't say much. So, including Peggy, the combination of one big and three small children took George's ride to school. On the playground of Melford School, although the students were disappointed with the performance of the football team last week, there were still many people who came to the scene today to support the school's football team. Let's go to the team preparation area, which is more suitable for watching the game. In the crowd, Mike protected the three little ones and squeezed towards the Melford team preparation area. Mike, who is already a reserve member of the team, is not against the rules to take people to the team preparation area. In the back, George, who returned to the familiar venue again, looked around with a complicated expression. Then, he lowered the baseball cap on his head again and followed the pace of Mike in front. "Hey, Mike." Captain Aaron greeted Mike in the preparation area and told him about the team's situation. "Our opponent this time is Little Garden High School. If we can't beat them, then our situation will be bad. The purpose of the spring invitational tournament is to test the ability of each team. Therefore, the strength of the two invited teams is generally not much different. The poor performance of the Melford rugby team in the last warm-up match also had a very bad effect. Many higher-level schools have the intention to refuse their invitational tournament quota. The strong will always be strong, and the weak will always be weak. As a team in the top 10 of the state competition last year, if Melford cannot invite opponents of the same level this year, it will be a big blow to the team's reputation and the enthusiasm of the players. Therefore, in this game against the weak team of Little Garden High School, Melford not only needs to win, but also needs to win beautifully." Captain Aaron, who is under a lot of pressure, also wants to discuss the future direction of the team with Mike, a powerful future teammate. Just when he was about to continue his in-depth conversation with Mike, he saw a familiar figure in his peripheral vision. Coach George, who lacked body management, had gained a lot of weight in the past 6 months. In addition, his oversized coat and the low hat brim on his head almost made Aaron unable to recognize him. "Long time no see." Aaron George, who had prepared to be recognized in advance, raised his head and smiled gently. "It's really you, Coach George." Aaron was surprised and happy. Seeing this familiar face again made him feel very relieved. On the other side, the old players who also noticed the situation here also came over to say hello in surprise. "Okay, there will be a game later. You go and prepare first. I'll go and talk to Coach Wayne." After George appeased the enthusiastic players, he walked towards Wayne under the tactical board. If possible, he wanted to help the other party cheer up and lead the team out of the trough. This was also something George had seriously considered before coming. A bad soldier will make a bad general. George, who used to be a head coach, knew very well the role of the head coach in a team. Chapter 233 George returns. Continued. "Old man, how are you doing lately?" George came to Coach Wayne, found a seat and sat down, looking like he wanted to have a deep chat with him. "It's terrible. I just went through the divorce procedures with Serena. I can't believe she would do that. Finally meeting someone to talk to, the depressed Coach Wayne couldn't help but complain about his ex-wife. For such a thing, any man probably couldn't help it. But soon, Wayne realized that such things were not suitable to be talked about here, so he changed his tone and said, "Forget it, let's not talk about those bad things. Tell me about yourself, how have you been, since you left the team?" "It's okay, I found a job with 2 days off a week at a sporting goods store," George answered in a relaxed tone, without pouring out his negative emotions. Then, the two chatted with each other, and George was always looking for opportunities to persuade the other to cheer up. In this way, the time came to nearly 10 o'clock in the morning. As the game was about to start, the players from SYNOPSIS High School also appeared in the center of the court. Captain Aaron came to Coach Wayne before going on stage and asked, "Coach, what tactics should we use today?" "Tactics?" Coach Wayne obviously hadn't thought about this question, and then perfunctorily said, "Just use the tactics you used in training before." "Tactics in training? That means there is no tactics." "Okay." Captain Aaron was stunned for a moment, and did not expose the other party's lie to his face. After saving some face for Coach Wayne in front of George, the former head coach, Aaron led the players to the field with worry. "Wayne, this year's spring invitational stage is a good opportunity for you to show yourself." After Aaron left, George also took this opportunity to persuade Wayne beside him, "If you can lead Melford, this potential team now, to get good results, maybe you will be valued by a certain university team." Last year, George received an offer from the university football team because he led the team to get good results. And Wayne, who is less than 40 years old this year, is now at the age where he should work hard, and he has the opportunity to make further progress in his career. When people reach middle age, they always have to focus on family and career. George also wants to use his career success to inspire his old friend who is frustrated in the family to cheer up again. Let's talk about the summer league. Coach Wayne looked like he was playing badly. To be honest, the unranked spring invitational tournament is indeed much less valuable than the summer league. Of course, focusing on the summer league in the spring is just an excuse for Coach Wayne to escape reality. When he was an assistant coach under George, Wayne's work attitude was relatively mixed. Now that he has suffered a heavy blow to his family, he has been smoothed out and lost his enterprising spirit. On the opposite side, George, who has tried his best, looked at Wayne, who had not trimmed his appearance for a long time and looked decadent, and shook his head helplessly. People who have fallen into depravity cannot be persuaded back with just 2 or 3 words. "By the way, how about we go for a drink later?" Wayne, who was still immersed in grief, invited. Alcohol can paralyze the nerves and make people forget the pain temporarily. Okay, George nodded and did not refuse the invitation. Then, his eyes turned to the court. On the court, the guessing phase of the two teams had ended, and SYNOPSIS High School was lucky to get the first attack. As the two teams opened their formations, the first quarter of the game officially began. SYNOPSIS High School adopted a conventional long and short ball tactic in the first round of offense, hoping to advance steadily. On the other side, the Melford team, which had experienced a defeat in the previous game, showed its best state and wanted to avenge its previous shame. So in the midfield, the two teams launched a fierce offensive and defensive battle. In the end, the defensive players led by Sam tightly entangled the quarterback of SYNOPSIS High School. It can be felt that the basic skills of Sam and other old players have not fallen behind. George, who noticed this off the court, also nodded with relief. After that, the game on the court entered a long tug-of-war. Finally, when the game was more than 4 minutes in, SYNOPSIS High School, which had been forced to stop 3 times in a row, won 3 points for the team with a front court foot shot. More than 4 minutes plus 3 points, this scoring efficiency is not high, but it seems acceptable to the two teams in different positions on the field. However, after the exchange of ball rights, the atmosphere on the field changed subtly. It is no secret that the Melford team lost last week, so the head coach of Little Garden High School also collected information about the opponent before the game started. Therefore, when the Melford team, which had no extra tactics to choose from, once again put out the dual core tactics, The opposite Little Garden High School also immediately adopted a local prevention and control strategy. This situation, which seemed to be reproduced yesterday, made all the players of Melford very uncomfortable. Obviously, the overall strength is higher than that of the opponent, but because of tactical reasons, it is restricted by the opponent. It feels like being in a quagmire and slowly waiting for death. It is not a good feeling. Therefore, Sam, who was double teamed by 3 opponents in the midfield again, and had to stop to save the ball, had a tendency to lose control of his emotions. This is only the first quarter. It can be imagined that, if the situation continues to develop like this, the invitational tournament of the Melford team will only be worse than the previous one. Wayne, the players need you now. A perfect version of the book in 16:9. On the sidelines, George noticed that the situation was not good, and reminded Coach Wayne, who was lazily leaning on the chair beside him. This situation is the time for the opponent to show his ability. It doesn't matter, it's just an invitational game. Let them suffer a little setback. Coach Wayne, who should have done something, chose to break the jar and break the pot. Okay, seeing Wayne's indifferent look, George shook his head disappointedly, and no longer had hope for the opponent. In the subsequent games, the Melford rugby team, which could not break through the opponent's defense line, became more and more difficult, and gradually lost the initiative in the situation. When the whistle sounded at the end of the first quarter, the Melford players, who were suppressed for a short game, returned to the rest area in frustration. Looking at the players' dejected looks, George finally couldn't help but stand up, clapped his hands, attracted everyone's attention, and said, "Listen to me, kids, the game has just started. It's not time to admit defeat." As a group of old players gathered around, George also found the feeling, when he was the head coach before. "Aaron, Sam, I need you to change your position later." George told the two how to deal with local control. As a quarterback, Aaron has a better vision and the ability to pass the ball. As for the power player Sam, as long as he is given enough space, I believe that not many people on the field can stop his impact. Also, everyone else should cheer up. You are a whole. Come on everyone. The break time in the first quarter was only 2 minutes. When the players were preparing to return to the field, George also encouraged the players. The Melford players, who gradually had a backbone, also regained their confidence. After the start of the second quarter, as George guessed, with Aaron's long pass ability and Sam's rushing ability, Melford broke the local control strategy of Little Garden High School. The Melford audience, who had already given up hope on their team, saw the players' sudden improvement, and gave applause and cheers. The scene suddenly became heated. Sometimes, the game is all about momentum. With confidence in their hearts, the Melford players became more and more courageous after breaking through the difficulties. Then, the Little Garden High School, which was forced to retreat step by step, had to call a timeout. "Coach, how should we play next?" During the timeout, Captain Aaron came to the sidelines and sought George's help. After this timeout, the opponent will definitely change their defensive strategy. But you don't have to worry, your overall strength is much stronger than the opponent. No matter what tricks they play next, you just need to play steadily. George shared his experience. At this point, the Melford players have also completed a transformation. In the subsequent games, as long as they don't make major mistakes, there is no possibility of losing in the head-to-head competition. Chapter 234, Competition in the Spring Rain. Go go go, keep the formation, guards, pay attention to cover. After the timeout, with George's shouts on the sidelines, Melford's players played a small peek on the offensive end. Facts have proved that in the regular hard power collision, Melford is indeed much stronger than its opponent. And with the continuous cheers of the audience outside the court, at the end of the second quarter, the Melford players who have recovered their form have also established a sufficient advantage in the score. They returned to the rest area again, and they rarely put on smiles on their faces. Well done. Kids, keep this state, you are the best. After encouraging the players, George used the halftime break to continue to assign tasks to everyone. In the second half, we will still use the long short ball tactics. Aaron, pay attention to controlling the rhythm of the game. Guards and tackles, pay attention to your position. I want you to cover the quarterback at any time. The long short ball tactics can be said to be mediocre, but this set of tactics wins in the word stable, which is very suitable for strong teams to crush weak teams. The Medford team, which had just regained its confidence, did not need to win by surprise. They only needed to play steadily and steadily to win the game. Did everyone understand what I said? George asked loudly, after determining the tactics for the second half. I understand, coach. The players who were convinced by George responded loudly. Very good. There are still a few minutes left. Everyone take a break. Unknowingly, George has taken on the job of the team's head coach. In the back, Coach Wayne, who was lying flat under the tactical board, did not realize the crisis. At this time, he even had the leisure to think about where to go for a drink after the game. At the same time, an old man in disguise in the audience saw everything that happened here. At the end of the halftime break, Captain Aaron, who was still full of fighting spirit, also led the players to shout the slogan, "Melford must win. Melford must win." In the third quarter of the game, although Melford High School tried to change its tactics, it still failed to make any waves in the face of the huge gap in strength. When Captain Aaron once again, under the cover of his teammates, sent the football into the opponent's end zone, the long suppressed audience outside the field was ignited. With a dozen points advantage, the Melford team was equivalent to locking in the victory in advance. What's there to cheer about? From a statistical point of view, Melford is stronger and victory is inevitable. In the rest area, little Sheldon looked at the audience who was so excited that they couldn't control themselves and expressed his incomprehension. What do you know? This is a battle of honor. Missy, who was infected by the atmosphere, despised little Sheldon and shouted to the field, "Little George, come on, barbaric sports." Little Sheldon shook his head and was about to find a reason to refute Missy. However, he suddenly felt raindrops falling on his face, and he didn't care about anything else, and shouted in fear, "Oh no, it's raining, it's raining." He would get sick if he got wet in the rain, and little Sheldon didn't like the feeling of being sick. "Don't be nervous, Sheldon. I'll take you to hide from the rain now." Mike, who reached out and felt the raindrops falling, calmed the panicked little Sheldon. The transition between spring and summer is the season of frequent showers. At this moment, the sun was shining brightly in the sky, and there were no dark clouds. It was obviously a temporary sun shower. The rain was not heavy and did not affect the normal progress of the game. Of course, considering that Peggy and the other two were still children and their physiques were not as strong as those of adults, Mike protected the three little ones and squeezed through the crowd to the direction of the teaching building to take shelter from the rain. Under the eaves of the teaching building, many female students gathered to take shelter from the rain. When Mike arrived, he unexpectedly found the disguised old principal in the corner. "Hush, Principal." Tom made a silent gesture and shook his head quickly. Obviously, he came to secretly observe George this time, so he didn't want to be recognized by too many people. On the playground, as the game progressed, the showers had a tendency to get heavier. In this case, George's big coat and peaked cap today were just a blessing in disguise. At this time, he did not care about himself, but instead kept cheering for the players on the field in the heavy rain. As for Coach Wayne, who was supposed to do this job, he had long gone to hide from the rain. The drizzle came quickly and went away quickly. Not long into the fourth quarter, the sudden rain stopped. With the fresh air, a rainbow hung in the sky after the rain. "We did it." The whistle sounded at the end of the game, and the Melford players, who had won more than 20 points in a row, cheered and hugged each other. They needed this victory so much. Then, a group of people rushed back to the rest area, surrounded George in the middle, and shared the joy of victory. "Hey, Mike, did you see that? We won." When little George saw Mike coming over, he rushed up to give him a hug. No, Mike stretched out his hand to stop him, showing a look of disgust. Little George, who played a game of football in the rain, was like rolling in a mud pit. Mike didn't want to hug a mudman. "Mike, we did it successfully." God knows how much pressure Captain Aaron was under before this game. Check out the correct version in 16,191 book forum. At this time, he also showed a happy smile on his face. It can be said that the victory of this game is also of great significance to Captain Aaron. "Congratulations," Mike said with a smile. "No, congratulations to us," Aaron corrected. Strictly speaking, Mike is now also a member of the team. Thinking that the team will get better and better, the smile on Captain Aaron's face became brighter. After a celebration, the game came to the final handshake time between the head coaches of both sides. Since Coach Wayne had not returned from hiding from the rain, all the players looked at George expectantly. If possible, the players hoped that George could be their head coach. Okay, due to the emergency, George could only face the expectant eyes of the players and walk to the center of the field. Congratulations on your victory. Although the head coach of Zion High School was still a little unwilling, after seeing the true strength of the Melford team, he was also convinced of his defeat. Thank you. Your tactical preparation before the game is also very good. George tidied his clothes and took the initiative to reach out and shake hands with the other head coach. Afterwards, the two exchanged their thoughts on the game. When they turned around and walked off the court, they announced that the invitational tournament had officially ended. Kids, please keep working hard. George, who had relived his coaching addiction, reluctantly said goodbye to the players. It's time for me to leave. Wait, George. There will be good news waiting for you later. Mike was ready to confront the other party. George's previous performance was probably seen by the principal. If nothing unexpected happens, his return to head coach should be a foregone conclusion. What good news? George asked in surprise. At this time, Captain Aaron, who seemed to have thought of something, showed a look of surprise on his face again. Just as Mike was about to explain, the student union president led a group of volunteers to the team's rest area. Mike and Mr. George, the principal asks you to go to his office. The student union president looked around and continued to ask, by the way, where is Coach Wayne? Here, what do you want? Coach Wayne, who didn't know where he went, finally rushed back after the game. The principal also asked you to go. The student union president notified. Little George, help look after Peggy and the others. Mike, who knew what was going to happen, arranged the three little ones and turned to George and said, let's go see the principal. Oh. George, who looked puzzled, followed Mike's steps and asked in a low voice, do you know something? It's good news. You'll know in a moment. Mike kept it a secret again. If conditions permit, the principal should tell George the good news in person, and the effect will be better. Chapter 235, said Sale again. In the principal's office, Principal Tom left his desk and came to a small tea table to brew a pot of new tea. He looked solemn, but his tea making skills were very amateurish. When he saw Mike and the other two come in, the old principal greeted them warmly. Come and try it. This is the Oriental tea I got from my friends. They say it's called BLUO, chun. Unlike the big cups of sugared black tea that Westerners are used to drinking, a set of exquisite tea sets that looked very precious was placed on the table. Among them, the diameter of the small teacups was not much thicker than an adult's thumb. After carefully pouring tea for the three people, Principal Tom sat back and signaled Mike and the others to taste the tea with his eyes. At the same time, the old principal had a hint of boasting on his face. He looked like a child who had a new toy and was eager to show it off to his friends. George, who was still confused, picked up the small teacup and drank it all out of curiosity after seeing the principal's appearance. Then he frowned. To be honest, compared to the slightly bitter green tea, George prefers sweet black tea or coffee. This kind of tea is not drunk like this. It needs to be tasted slowly in small sips. Principal Tom stood up to refill George's cup and at the same time popularized the way to drink Oriental tea. But George, who was full of doubts, did not have the patience to taste tea now. He asked directly, Principal Tom, what do you want to see me for today? Principal Tom, who was interrupted, shook his head first and then smiled and said, it's good news. According to the school's repeated investigations, the school decided to rehire you as the head coach of the team. Are you serious? Happiness came too suddenly, so that George's brain was a little short-circuited. The old principal smiled but said nothing. George, who confirmed the news, subconsciously picked up the teacup again and drank it all. After the bitter taste stimulated the taste buds, it actually became slightly sweet. Thank you, Principal Tom. George, who had gone through hardships, was excited. I'm willing to continue to play for the team. You should thank Mike. Principal Tom was very satisfied with George's reaction. Then he also pointed out the role Mike played in this matter. Then, the old principal took out a contract from the desk next to him and continued, "The school will not treat any meritorious person unfairly. Considering your performance last year, you deserve this contract with a weekly salary of 1,000 yuan. Then, a brand new one was placed in front of George. For a high school physical education teacher, a salary of 1,000 yuan is already very high, almost comparable to the income of some middle-class families. After carefully reading the contract, George calmed down and thought of the intention of the school to offer this high-paying contract, so he promised, "I will lead the team and continue to win better results." "Very good. I look forward to your performance." Principal Tom seemed to be waiting for George to say this. He has already determined to retire at the end of this year, and in order to get more honors during his tenure, he does not mind offering George a high salary. Of course, George can get such a high salary this time, and it is not without Principal Tom's intention to compensate him. After negotiating with George, the old principal turned his gaze to Coach Wayne, who was looking nervous. "Coach Wayne, due to your recent performance, the school has decided to reassign you to the position of assistant coach. Do you have any opinions on this?" Principal Tom put away his smile at this time. No. Coach Wayne shook his head quickly. He knew his situation well, and being reassigned to the position of assistant coach was not the worst result. And he had just divorced his wife, and now he was able to feed the whole family. The salary of an assistant coach was enough for him to live a carefree life. "That's good. I hope you can cooperate with Coach George in the future." After settling Coach Wayne, Principal Tom continued to encourage the two coaches. So far, the Melford rugby team, which had found its helmsman, set sail again today. Mike, who was drinking tea and watching the show, had already negotiated the terms with Principal Tom, so there was no need to talk more here. The reason why he was called here this time might be that Principal Tom wanted him to witness George's entry on the spot. "Sorry, Wayne." After leaving the principal's office, George, who had regained the position of head coach, felt a little sorry for his old colleague. "Don't apologize, George. I feel more relaxed when I'm not the head coach. This is the truth." Coach Wayne, who has no ambition, feels more relaxed when someone helps him out and he gets paid. "To celebrate your return to the team, shall we go for a drink?" Wayne invited him again after arriving at the door of the teaching building. "Next time. I'll treat you next time." Facing the warm sun outside, George, who seemed to have been reborn, wanted to share his good news with his family as soon as possible. "Okay, remember this drink first. We'll get together again when you're free." Wayne didn't hesitate too much. After waving his hand, he walked out of the school alone. On the other side of the playing field, with the help of volunteers, the players did not need to deal with the aftermath. At this time, George and Captain Aaron had also gone to the locker room to wash up and changed back into their regular clothes. A perfect version in a book bar. "Mike, what did the principal ask you to do? Can you tell me this time?" George, who was responsible for taking care of the children, asked curiously when he saw Mike and the others coming back. "Coach George, you should tell us." Mike gave the opportunity to share the good news to George. Good George, who still felt a little unreal, regained his composure after seeing his family and said with a smile, "I'm the head coach of the team again." "Really? That's great." Little George, who has always been proud of having a football coach dad, cheered immediately after hearing the good news. "That's great. George is the head coach." On the side, Missy, who was infected by the atmosphere, also ran around the playground happily. Among the three children of the Cooper family, only little Sheldon behaved the calmest. Just looking at his slightly raised face, it was obvious that he was also happy for his father. "Congratulations, Coach George." Captain Aaron, who had expected it, smiled and sent his blessings. After returning home, George saw his wife busy in the kitchen and hugged her tightly. "I'm cooking, George." Mary, who was still holding the spatula, then felt her husband's strangeness and asked with concern, "What happened?" "I became the head coach of the Melford football team again, with a weekly salary of $1,000. George whispered to his wife to share his joy. "Great, that's $1,000. Mary's exclamation came from the kitchen. Time came to the afternoon. In order to celebrate his return to the team, George found the grill that had not been used for a long time and prepared to make a Texas barbecue for his family. When Grandma Connie came back from her date with Professor John, she saw the lively scene in the Cooper family yard. "What's going on? Is there something good happening that I don't know about?" Grandma Connie asked in surprise. "It's George. He became the football coach again." Mary shared the good news with her mother. "It's really a fool's luck." After understanding the cause of the matter, Grandma Connie muttered softly and then happily joined the barbecue dinner. Chapter 236 Grouping. Dale, thank you for your care during this period. The next weekend, George came to the sporting goods store with a little apology and resigned from his job as a salesperson to the boss. Although the job in the sporting goods store did not pay much, it did help George get through the dilemma at the time. Go, George. I have long seen that you will return to the team one day, and that is your home court. Boss Dale smiled and waved. Remember to come and take care of my store's business in the future. I will definitely. George turned around and hugged the other party, promising, when I'm free, I will come to drink with you. The time spent together for half a year also allowed the two men with a huge age difference to establish a deep friendship. When the time came to Monday, George, who took over the job of head coach again, used the morning to look through all the information of the team members. By the afternoon outdoor exercise class, he was able to match the names of the new players with themselves. This is also a great achievement for a physical education teacher. Aaron, you lead everyone to warm up first. I will give you another physical test in a while. On the playground, Coach George, wearing an orange sports short-sleeved shirt, arranged work for everyone. Newcomers, new atmosphere. Seeing the new coach full of energy, the football players were also full of fighting spirit. After everyone finished warming up and gathered together again, Coach George also told his plan. I plan to divide the team into an offensive group and a defensive group, so I need to give you another round of physical tests so that I can arrange your positions according to your personal situation. Not every school has the ability to divide the team into groups, which requires sufficient talent reserves. The Melford football team, which now has nearly 100 players, basically meets the grouping conditions. In a regular football team, there are offensive groups, defensive groups and special teams, and a total of 54 regular players are required. Among them, the special team personnel with special roles are the most complex and ineffective. Therefore, generally at the college stage, each football team has the ability and need to consider establishing its own special team. Okay, I've said what I need to say. Next, let's go to the equipment area for the test. After arranging the players, George said to Coach Wayne behind him, I'll leave the statistics to you. No problem. Coach Wayne, who was holding a writing board behind him, nodded. He has now become George's little follower. According to the needs of the team, the physical tests include 40-yard weighted sprint, vertical jump in place, obstacle shuttle run and other projects. These projects correspond to the speed, explosive power and agility of the players respectively. Of course, a comprehensive physical test also needs to test balance, flexibility, coordination, and endurance. The physical test of nearly 100 people is not a small project. Repetitive and mechanical tests will inevitably make people feel boring. Of course, Mike's test process is not included in that 40-yard weighted sprint. 4.5s vertical jump in place. 1.2 meters. Mike, who constantly refreshes the physical test records of the school football team, allows a group of high school students who have not seen much of the world to continuously contribute to global warming. 45, 46, 47. Mike was doing his strength test on the 100 kilogram bench press. Hold on, Mike, one more time. Coach George, who witnessed the miracle, kept cheering Mike on. 50, 51. As the number of presses reached 51, Mike stopped his strength test. Nowadays, the top professional football players can do about 50 bench presses in the range of 120 kilograms. In order not to shock the crowd, Mike restrained his ability a little in the test. According to the ratio, he showed about 1/5 of his strength in this test. Even so, the crowd who witnessed the 51 bench press record couldn't help but exclaim, "You are really a monster." After seeing Mike's inhuman performance, George came forward excitedly. pinched the muscles on his arm, and almost drooled with envy. In half a year, Mike grew 2 centimeters taller, and his figure remained fit and not bloated. It is hard to imagine that such a body contains such a huge amount of energy. I wonder how his impact strength compares to Sam's. The players who witnessed Mike's 51 push-ups whispered, "There are impact equipment specially used for training in the equipment area, but unfortunately that set of equipment cannot measure the impact strength. Therefore, everyone does not have an accurate understanding of Mike's impact destructive power." As for Sam, after half a year of hard training, his strength has remained at the top of the team. In the bench press test just now, he also reached an astonishing 36 times. Although there is still a gap with Mike's 51 times, compared with the single-digit bench press numbers of others, Sam is indeed very good in terms of strength. In order to have a reference, everyone naturally linked Sam and Mike. George also heard the discussion of the players, and he was also very curious about Mike's impact strength. After all, in rugby, the most abundant thing is collision. So, before the endurance test was about to start, Coach George asked, "Mike, Sam, do you two want to have a confrontational training?" "No problem for me, Coach." Sam stepped out and responded. Although he knew that he could not beat Mike, he was still a little unwilling to give up after a hard training. Moreover, confrontational training is not only about strength, but also about skills. It happened that Sam had also specially trained skills in the past 6 months. Check out the correct version in the 16:9 book bar. This confrontational drill may be his best chance to beat Mike. No problem for me either. Mike, who has a strong foundation, is not afraid of any challenge. What's more, rugby is a sport that speaks for itself. Soon, under the watch of the team members, Mike and Sam started a confrontational drill. The two people, who were less than 1 meter apart, put thick pads behind them. "Are you ready?" Coach George asked. The two people leaned forward to prepare for the confrontation and nodded at the same time. Compared to Sam, who was ready to go with his muscles, Mike's half-bent body looked a little thin. Begin bang. With the teeth-grinding sound of the protective gear colliding, a huge figure flew out backwards. Although they had guessed it long ago, seeing Sam being knocked out in a second still surprised all the players. Even Coach Wayne, who was responsible for recording the results at the back, opened his mouth wide. You have to know that this was a close-range collision. God knows how strong Mike's impact would be when he ran. "Sam, are you okay?" Coach George was surprised for a moment and hurried to check on Sam. The huge impact almost made this big guy fly out of the range of the pads. However, fortunately, there was thick protective gear to protect him. Although Sam looked a little badly hit, he was not actually injured. "I'm fine, Coach." Sam, who had eased up, answered. Coach George was relieved only after confirming that the other party was really fine. Otherwise, if he injured a player on the first day back to the team, it would be difficult to explain to the school. "Go and have a rest for a while, to be on the safe side." Coach George gave Sam the privilege of resting, and then said to the other players, "Next, we will have the last endurance test." The endurance test is very simple. That is, the players line up in a square and run in circles at a constant speed. Those who can't hold on can leave the square. After more than an hour, as the players fell behind one by one, Mike, who was the only one left, also stopped. At this point, the endurance test was considered to be over. I have basically understood everyone's situation. Tomorrow afternoon I will officially announce the positions you will take on in the team. Of course, if you have any different opinions or suggestions, you can also come to me at any time. The team is not a one-man show, so Coach George did not say anything final. Then, seeing that the time was almost up, Coach George reserved enough time for everyone to rest and wash. "Let's stop here today and disband, Coach. Goodbye." After saying goodbye to the coach, the players walked towards the locker room together weakly. Obviously, the previous endurance test was not easy for everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Grouping, continued. George, how do you feel about your first day at work? During the dinner at the Cooper family, looking at a large table of delicious food, Connie, who was in a good mood, took the time to chat with her son-in-law. Today is different from the past. With George's high salary, the food level of the Cooper family has improved by several levels. Very good, George replied with a smile. Although he has a lot of work to do when he just returned to the team, for George who loves football, this kind of busyness makes him feel very fulfilled. And being able to shine in the industry he loves is a kind of luck. You didn't see it today. Mike's performance is like a monster. Little George, who was tasting the food, couldn't help but join the chat. Then, he looked proud and showed off all the results of Mike's physical test today. I know that Mike is the best. Although Missy didn't quite understand how outstanding Mike's physical test results were, it didn't prevent the little girl from admiring him. With the chattering of the little girl and little George, the table was filled with a happy atmosphere. At the same time, looking at the harmonious atmosphere of the family, George felt extremely satisfied. As a middle-aged man, he even had the illusion that his life was perfect. However, when he saw his eldest son eating in a sloppy manner, his good mood was broken in a second. Little George, swallow your food before talking. Your saliva is about to spray on my face. George scolded. It turns out that what Sheldon often said about little George was a gorilla that had not yet evolved completely was not wrong. Time came to Tuesday afternoon. Most of the football players who were waiting for the coach to group them on the playground looked very nervous. Based on your personal situation, I have already made the group. In front of the team, Coach George read with a notebook. The offensive team includes quarterback Aaron, running back Mike, wide receiver little George. For the current high school football players, the offensive team that can help the team score and stand out is naturally more popular. So after Coach George finished reading the members of the offensive team, most of the players who were assigned to the offensive team showed a look of joy. Those who didn't make the offensive team shouldn't be discouraged. You should know that in a mature football team, the defensive team is equally important. Coach George, who saw everyone's on-the-spot reactions, tried to appease the players who failed to make the offensive team, and then continued to read. Next are the members of the defensive team. Defensive tackle Sam Lineberkaklo. In terms of functionality, having a qualified defensive team is indeed very important to the team. After all, from the theory of relativity, not letting the opponent score is to help the team score. However, it is difficult for high school students who are in adolescence and love to show off to accept this point of view. Therefore, when Coach George finished reading the members of the defensive team, many people had a look of loss on their faces. Okay, this is basically the grouping situation. Those who have opinions on this arrangement can speak out now. While soliciting everyone's opinions, Coach George also looked at Sam. The team's defensive team has just begun to be formed, and Sam, who has outstanding abilities, naturally becomes the absolute core of the defensive end. For the harmonious development of the team, Coach George needs to take more care of the feelings of the other party. Sam, on the other hand, had a premonition that he would become a member of the defensive team. In addition, he lost to Mike in the confrontation drill yesterday, and he knew that he could not match the opponent on the offensive end, so he was quite calm at this time. The other people who were assigned to the defensive team, perhaps because no one took the lead, did not dare to ask to change teams. If no one has any objections, the grouping is determined. Coach George, who waited for a while and saw that no one spoke, ended the topic with a hammer. Then, he planned today's plan. Coach Wayne, you will take the offensive team to the field to familiarize yourself with the long and short ball tactics. After I arrange the defensive tactics for the defensive team, we will have a field confrontation drill. After Wayne left with the offensive team, Coach George explained the defensive tactics to the remaining defensive team members. 1. Birdcage defense tactics, like the long and short ball tactics on the offensive end. It is a relatively mediocre, but versatile defensive tactic. Its biggest advantage is that it can always control the overall situation. 2. Local control tactics. It is a set of defensive tactics specifically targeting the opponent's strong players. It often occurs that 2 or more people double team one of the opponent's players. The advantage of this set of tactics is obvious, that is, it can lock the opponent's star players to the maximum extent. Of course, the disadvantage is also obvious. While locking the opponent's star players, it is easy to miss other players of the opponent. These two sets of defensive tactics can be said to have their own advantages and disadvantages, but they are enough for the current Melford defense team. After explaining the two sets of defensive tactics in detail, Coach George also quickly completed the deployment of the defense team according to the situation of the players. Then Coach George, who had two sets of defensive tactics, took the members of the defense team to find Coach Wayne. After that, the offensive and defensive teams launched a long offensive and defensive battle drill. Long and short ball tactics vs birdcage control tactics. Pay attention to the running position. Keep an eye on the person in front of you. In the 16:9 book and bar, you can see the correct version. As the drill began, Coach George constantly adjusted the positions of the members of the defense team according to the actual situation on the field. Soon the members of the defense team also understood the focus of the birdcage control tactics, which is man-to-man control. As for the offensive team, Coach Wayne did not give any instructions, and it seemed that he wanted the players to play freely. This situation also quickly turned the offensive team's long and short ball tactics into a dual core tactics without realizing it. So, relying on the cooperation of Mike and Aaron, the offensive team completed several touchdowns in a row. Bang! With the sound of violent collision, when Mike once again knocked away Sam who was guarding him, and entered the end zone without difficulty, Coach George frowned. The confrontation drill to this extent has completely become Mike's personal show, and it has not achieved the purpose of tactical drills at all. Afterwards, in order to limit Mike, Coach George began to rotate his own defensive team members constantly, and the tactics changed from birdcage control to local control. Bang! Bang! When Mike knocked away 3 players who came forward to double team him, George also blew the whistle for a timeout helplessly. Mike, you come down and rest for a while. Coach George saw that with Mike on the court, the purpose of tactical drills could not be achieved at all. But Mike can help the team score points, so you can't say he is wrong. So since the problem cannot be solved, the person who caused the problem should be solved. Therefore, in order to allow the tactics to be practiced smoothly, Coach George chose to put Mike on the bench. Coach Wayne, I hope you can let all the players on your side take turns to play and feel the game. Taking advantage of the timeout, Coach George also told Wayne about his requirements. The advantage of grouping the team is that it allows the players to focus on one position. The advantage of doing this is that the strength of the players can be quickly improved in a short period of time. Therefore, Coach George now wants to find the optimal configuration of the team through continuous trial and error, so that the players in each position can be determined as soon as possible. He has made a promise to the principal, and he obviously has great ambitions. Chapter 238, Unstoppable Running Back. Next, without Mike on the field, the defense team led by Coach George fought back and forth with the offense team, led by Captain Aaron. More than half an hour later, as the two teams kept rotating, Coach George, who was scribbling on the sidelines, basically finalized the list of players for each position. Okay, everyone take a break. After completing the stage goal, Coach George stopped the game, and then shouted, Aaron, Mike, come with me. The 3 of them went to an empty space on the side. After motioning the 2 to sit down, Coach George said in a negotiating tone, Mike's current physique and extreme skills have reached the level of a star player. So I want to form a star play on the offensive end. I wonder if you have any opinions. Star tactics are a set of tactics that cannot be called tactics. According to the personal situation of the star player, this set of playing styles will form various different styles. It can be said that one person is a team. Therefore, this style of play is also a special test of the ability of star players. I have no problem. If necessary, I can cooperate with Mike at any time. Captain Aaron immediately expressed his opinion. As long as he can help the team win, Captain Aaron doesn't mind being a screw. Originally, the quarterback should be the star player in a team, but because Mike's level has increased too fast, the situation of the Melford team has become a little complicated. In order to ensure harmony within the team, Coach George must consider Captain Aaron's feelings before proposing this set of tactics. It depends on the situation. Captain Aaron didn't seem to think much about it. Coach George nodded with satisfaction and continued to ask, "Mike, what about you?" The star play is also often used in professional teams with superstars. Although Coach George has never coached a professional team, he has also conducted in-depth research on this set of self-contained tactics. The star tactics not only require the core players to have strong skills, but also require them to have a big heart that depends on winning or losing. Therefore, now is the time to test whether Mike can withstand the pressure. "I have no problem," Mike replied afterwards. In fact, in the game last summer league, when Melford lost to Austin, after Captain Aaron was injured and left the field, the single core team led by Mike almost used the star tactics. At that time, it was also because of Mike's lack of strength that the team lost regretfully. But now it is different from the past. Mike, who has a stronger physique, is not afraid of challenges at all. After getting Mike's affirmative answer and seeing the other party's momentum, Coach George nodded again with satisfaction. Then, he explained to the two people in front of him what they should pay special attention to in the star tactics. After more than 10 minutes, Coach George, who had shared his experience, was full of expectations for the effect of this set of tactics that he had promoted. "Let's go, let's try the new tactics." Coach George took Mike and the two and returned to the training ground. Next, the offensive group with Mike as the core, under the supervision of Coach George, started a new round of offensive and defensive drills with the defensive group, guided by Coach Wayne. "Mike, pay attention to the choice of attack route." Coach George on the sidelines reminded Mike as he took the ball and once again faced Sam from the defensive team. The power limit of the star tactics depends entirely on the core player, so every choice he makes is very important. In the offense, choosing a route that is easier to break through is a compulsory course for the core players. Bang! On the court, Sam fell to the ground with a violent collision, while Mike on the other side took the ball straight into the opponent's end zone. This situation made Coach George, who wanted to remind him on the sidelines, swallow his half-sentenced words. The purpose of formulating tactics is to score better. Therefore, even if Mike's choice of attack route is unreasonable in Coach George's opinion, who told the opponent to score, the process serves the result, and the result is good. Coach George does not need to force Mike to guide him. For this kind of thing, he can wait until Mike makes a mistake before reminding him. However, when Mike knocked over Sam again and again on the court to score, Coach George's brows became more and more furrowed. As Mike continued to score on the offensive end, the other players in his group were also motivated, and the game became smoother and smoother. The tone of this star tactic determines that when the star player performs well, his players will inevitably be carried away. At the same time, when the teammates are motivated, the advantage will also be fed back to the star player, making his offense more dominant. In the 16-9 book and bar, there is no wrong version. It can be said that the star tactic is a tactic with a high degree of freedom and a high ceiling. Just when the offensive team's momentum reached its peak, Coach George, who looked at the time on the sidelines, blew the whistle to end the training. Looking at the offensive team members who were still unsatisfied, Coach George smiled and shouted, "The training will continue tomorrow. Now everyone can clean up the scene and disband. Also, Mike, come here. I have something to ask you." "What's the matter, Coach?" Mike left the team and came to the side of the court. "I want to know, in the new tactical drill just now, you obviously have a better offensive route to choose. Why do you always go to Sam hard?" Coach George asked the doubts in his heart. Mike's previous performance made it easy for people to suspect that he had something against Sam. "I feel that is the best route to break through," Mike answered. He did not intentionally target Sam, but because the opponent always blocked the shortest offensive route. Yes, when Mike chooses an offensive route, the first thing he considers is efficiency. After all, in his personal situation, there is actually not much difference between breaking through Sam and breaking through other defensive players. The reason why Coach George was confused was that he did not have a clear understanding of Mike's strength. Therefore, after hearing the other party's answer, Coach George's head was also stuck. "Can I go back, Coach?" Seeing that the coach did not speak, Mike took the initiative to ask. "Go." Coach George waved his hand thoughtfully. There was nothing to clean up on the training ground, so when Mike returned to the team, he went to the locker room with George. "George, what are you doing? Let's go too. It's just right to go for a drink later." Coach Wayne, who was watching the players clean up the training ground, greeted George enthusiastically. "Oh, Oklahoma, I'll be there right away." George went to Coach Wayne and continued, "When you have time, contact St. Mary's High School. We will choose them as our opponent for the next invitational tournament." The head coach of St. Mary's High School promised George during last year's summer league that they could have an invitational tournament this year. The St. Mary's rugby team, which is in the top 10 goalkeeper position in the state league, can just help the Melford team hone new tactics. Coach George figured it out. Instead of persuading Mike to change his mind, it would be better to let the other side reflect on themselves after encountering a strong opponent and hitting a snag. Chapter 239. Before the game. As the most popular man in the school last year, Mike, who has many halos, is very concerned by students. So in the next few days, the news of his return to the football team gradually spread in the school. Of course, the main force driving this event is the girls in the school, who are greedy for his body. This situation led to girls secretly coming to the playground from time to time to watch the team's training during the next training of the football team. When these girls saw Mike's heroic figure in the team's confrontation drills, they immediately turned into crazy fans. Therefore, Mike's popularity in the school reached its peak again through word of mouth. By the way, the attention the team received was raised to a higher level. Time came to Saturday, the day of the invitational tournament between Melford High School and St. Mary's High School. Coach Wayne has contacted the head coach Cotton of St. Mary's High School, and the other party has fulfilled his promise last year. At about 9:30, a bus marked with the logo of St. Mary's College slowly drove into the Melford campus. Behind the bus, there was a luxurious black private car. The wealthy and leisurely scene family came to the invitational tournament to cheer for the black boy they adopted. Seeing the opponent coming, Coach George said to all the players in the Melford team rest area, "The opponent is very strong this time, so I need you to cheer up. Let's warm up first with the recent popularity of the rugby team and the victory against Little Garden High School last week. The number of students who came to support the Melford rugby team today has also reached a new high." Seeing the situation is very good, the audience cheered loudly in advance when they saw the Melford rugby players warming up. "Wow, it's really lively today." Coach Cotton was also shocked by the lively scene around him when he led the players to the St. Mary's rest area. The rule of the spring invitational tournament is to determine the home court based on the ranking of the summer league last year. Although the historical performance of St. Mary's High School is much better than Melford, who said they lost to the latter last year. Therefore, in today's invitational match, the St. Mary's football team can only play away at Melford campus as a challenger. Mike, Coach George seems not very satisfied with our start tactics. Captain Aaron came to Mike, who was preparing to warm up. As the captain of the team, Aaron keenly discovered that Coach George and Mike were a little bit at odds on the concept of the new tactics. From the perspective of an observer, he also vaguely felt that Mike's choice of offensive route in the start tactics seemed unreasonable. Therefore, Captain Aaron also wanted to persuade Mike in this time before the game started. "It's okay, Coach George will understand me. The start tactics are originally about one person making an army." Mike, who has full confidence in his own strength, does not think there is anything wrong with his playing style. "Okay, I will try my best to cooperate with you when necessary." Looking at Mike's confident appearance, Captain Aaron did not say any more words of persuasion, but chose to believe in the other party. The uniqueness of the star tactics determines that, if you want to play the power of this tactic, the first choice is that the players need to truly trust the core players from the heart. And Mike's performance on the training ground so far is indeed worthy of his teammates' trust. Mike after Aaron left, Mike, who was warming up alone, heard a childish voice outside the court, shouting his name frantically. He looked over and saw a familiar figure in the rest area of St. Mary's High School. Last year's black fan, Little Scene, an interesting little guy. "If I remember correctly, you are my little fan last year walking to the rest area of St. Mary's High School." Mike smiled and joked, "Why, do you still want to ask me for an autograph this time?" Although Little Scene is only 6 or 7 years old, this little guy's emotional intelligence is not lower than Missy. Last year, it was him who disguised himself as Mike's little fan, asking for autographs and getting close to him, and suddenly challenged Mike on behalf of his family member Michael O'Hare. No, I don't need your autograph. Little Scene didn't expect that after half a year, the other party still remembered him. You know, what he did last year was not very glorious. After showing an awkward smile, Little Scene continued, I want to tell you that Big Mike has been training for half a year. He will definitely not lose to you again in this competition. Well, this little guy really has bad intentions. He called Mike here just to challenge him. Because of his name, Little Scene was very impressed by the handsome and popular Mike. After St. Mary's High School lost to Melford last time, he went back and made a strict winter training package for his family member Michael O'Hare, just waiting for the opportunity to let Big Michael avenge his previous defeat and defeat Mike. Thank you for your reminder. I will pay attention. Mike smiled and nodded to Little Scene and the big guy behind him, and then said, if there is nothing else, I think I should go warm up. This guy's really annoying. Looking at Mike's back as he left and seeing countless girls outside the court shouting his name and going crazy for him, Little Scene said enviously, but this guy's really popular. Big Michael, you can't lose to him later. I will try my best. The big guy Michael on the side replied with a silly smile. At the same time, he had secretly decided in his heart that he would do his best in the game later to show Little Scene the results of his special training this winter. A perfect version in 16 to 9 books and bars. It can be said that the big guy Michael, who has felt the warmth of family in Little Scene's house, is most reluctant to see his family disappointed. At the same time, Coach Cotton, who had arranged the logistics work, clapped his hands and called all the players from St. Mary's High School to him. We lost to Melford once last year. The opponent's strength should not be underestimated. After summarizing the opponent's strength, Coach Cotton encouraged, but I want to tell you that, although the opponent is very strong, we are not bad either. Today is the time to check the results of our training. Think about the hardships you have suffered for victory. After encouraging morale, Coach Cotton also hurriedly arranged for the players to warm up on the court. In the rest area of St. Mary's, Little Scene also raised his SLR camera to record the warm-up images of Big Mike. Obviously, these images will become a good memory for Big Michael in the future. Suddenly, the little guy seemed to think of something and suddenly turned his head and asked, Collins, do you like the guy named Mike on the other side? No, don't talk nonsense. Collins glanced at his parents not far away and quickly denied it in a low voice. Collins, the eldest daughter of the Tausey family, inherited her mother's beauty and is the captain of the cheerleading team of St. Mary's High School. She was also at the game of the summer league last year. Really? Then how do you explain the posters in your room? Little Scene asked again. Keep your voice down. Don't let your parents hear you. Collins glanced at his parents not far away and was about to cover Scene's mouth out of guilt. A young girl who has just begun to fall in love can easily be fascinated by an outstanding person of the opposite sex. Having seen Mike's performance last time, Collins was unconsciously attracted by the unique charm of the other party. By chance, the girl saw Mike's poster on the street by chance, and then she bought one for some reason. This matter was originally done very secretly, but it was unexpectedly discovered by her brother. Seeing her sister's blushing face, Scene asked unhappily, so in this game, do you support Big Michael or the other side's Mike? Of course I support my family. Collins replied. You've passed. Scene continued like a little adult. The other side's Mike is not a good person at first glance. Look at how many girls over there are fascinated by him. Next to the Melford rest area, Linnell led the members of Mike's support group to occupy a large open space, cheering for Mike in various ways. The girls who were able to join the fan club were all pretty, and they formed a beautiful scene. We were nothing special. Although Collins was the cheerleader, she was conservative. After realizing how popular Mike was, she felt a little inferior. Well, I just want to remind you that handsome boys are likely to be playboys. Don't be fooled by their appearance. Little Scene shook his head and shared his life experience with his sister. Chapter 240 Tactical Game. At 10 o'clock in the morning, with the increasingly enthusiastic cheers of the surrounding audience, the invitational tournament officially kicked off. In the coin tossing session, Melford was lucky enough to get the first attack right again. In the first quarter, we will use the long and short ball tactics. Do you understand? Before the game started, Coach George called the 11 players of the offensive team to his front and told them about the tactics later. The long and short ball tactics that focus more on teamwork are a sign of a team's maturity. When they can skillfully play the power of this set of tactics, it means that the team has become a strong team. Coach George is also consciously cultivating the abilities of other players in the team. After all, not every session can meet a player as talented as Mike. For ordinary people, rugby is a team sport. Only when the overall strength of the players becomes stronger can the team go further. I understand, Mike answered with everyone. With a super high IQ, he guessed Coach George's idea at once. Very good. Go. Coach George watched the offensive team members come on the court and stayed on Mike for 2 more seconds. This week, the team practiced the star tactics with Mike as the call the most. Now they used another mediocre tactic on the spot. Coach George was a little worried that the opponent would get upset. On the other side, Captain Aaron, who was heading to the center of the field, had the same worries as Coach George. He whispered, Mike, the coach should have his own considerations. Everyone knows your strength. You will definitely have a chance to show it later. It doesn't matter. I'm also a member of the team. Mike looked calm and didn't have any dissatisfaction. Although he didn't say it clearly, his meaning was very clear. As a member of the football team, he would follow the coach's arrangements. Seeing Mike's reaction, Captain Aaron nodded with satisfaction, and everything was self-evident. Beep. When the players of both sides set up their formations in the midfield, the whistle of the game sounded. On the offensive end, after receiving the football from the low post, Aaron, the quarterback, threw the ball to Mike on the side without thinking. Stop number 23. Don't let him rush up. Seeing Mike holding the ball, St. Mary's High School coach Cotton immediately became highly nervous and commanded the players to double team. Obviously, the head coach still remembered the dual core tactics of the Melford football team last year. He had studied the weaknesses of this tactic before the game, and now he also targeted the players to use local prevention and control tactics. It's just a pity that the Melford team is not using the dual core tactics now. Taking advantage of the gap when the big guy Michael and 2 opposing defensive players came forward to double team, Mike, who was holding the ball, instantly made a short throwback and threw the football back to Captain Aaron in front. In just a short while, the other players of Melford's offensive group had taken the opportunity to open the formation. When St. Mary's High School coach Cotton shouted loudly to the players to double team Aaron again on the sidelines, the football was thrown to the wide receiver standing very forward by Captain Aaron with a long pass. Gio. 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 With the huge cheers of the audience outside the stadium, the Melford wide receiver, who was not defended by anyone, lived up to expectations and rushed to the opponent's end zone with the ball. Touchdown. Melford scored +6. Well done. That's it. In the Melford rest area, Coach George excitedly waved his fist and then cheered with the audience. Facts have proved that even without star players, the Melford football team has the potential to become a strong team. Then, in the next additional scoring session, the Melford football team relied on the power of the team and once again achieved a touchdown achievement. Melford scored +2. The Melford football team, which scored 8 points in the first round of offense, made a perfect start with a major change in the loop. The audience who saw the new atmosphere of the school team cheered harder while feeling relieved. Shouting, cheering, and whistles intertwined, making the scene a sea of joy. Then, in the exchange of ball rights, Sam took over the game with the defense team on the Melford side. How is this possible? Looking at the changing situation on the field, Coach Cotton of St. Mary's High School showed a surprised look. All teams that can form a defensive team are strong teams. Coach Cotton did not expect that only half a year had passed and Melford had formed his own defensive team. In fact, as a goalkeeper of a strong team, St. Mary's High School had considered forming its own defensive team a long time ago, but it had always lacked a little foundation. Therefore, Coach Cotton is now a little envious of George. Okay, don't be distracted, kids. Follow the tactics we have practiced before, and the victory belongs to St. Mary. After being envious, Coach Cotton did not forget his work. Taking advantage of the gap before the attack, He loudly encouraged the players. Beep. The whistle of the offensive round of St. Mary's High School sounded. In the 16-9 book and bar, you can see the correct version. The opponent's quarterback, under the cover of the big guy Michael, rushed forward to Melford's end zone. Seeing that the situation was not good, Sam was about to step forward to stop him, but was knocked to the ground by the big guy Michael. Sam does have some talent in football, but compared with the top players, he still has a lot of room for growth. Michael O'Hare, the big guy from St. Mary's High School, actually joined the football team not long ago. This big guy, who is not good at speaking and a little silly in life, unexpectedly shows his strong talent on the football field. Coach Cotton also thought of a set of offensive tactics suitable for him based on this. The offensive tactics currently used by the St. Mary's football team can be regarded as a variant of the star tactics and the dual core tactics. Among them, the big guy Michael, as a star player and one of the dual cores, does not hold the ball, but uses his strong body and strong sense of protection to help the quarterback of his team score points. In this set of tactics, the big guy Michael does not need to think, he only needs to follow and protect his own quarterback. It can be said that Coach Cotton, who can come up with this strange tactic based on the personal characteristics of the players, has something in coaching ability. Later, the St. Mary's football team also relied on this set of tactics to steadily score 8 points. When the ball was exchanged again, Coach George looked at Sam, who was replaced, and looked depressed, and said to him, "Don't be discouraged, Sam. You have performed very well. We will try the double team tactic on that big guy later." In sports, the difference in talent is really very discouraging. During the team training, Sam had been abused by Mike countless times, and in today's game, he was abused by the opponent's big guy again. It seems that his luck is really bad. Even if the opponent is a little more normal, Sam will not be as embarrassed as he is now. On the other side, the game on the field continued. Mike, who was on the offensive end, faced the double team of St. Mary's High School again. Without any special tactical requirements, he leisurely led the opponent's defensive players and circled around the midfield. He was very successful in restraining the opponent. It was not until the football entered the opponent's backcourt that Mike stopped and kindly reminded the big guy in front of him, "You don't have to stare at me like that. The football is not here at all." As he said that, he deliberately spread his hands to indicate that he was not a threat. Facing his teasing, the big guy Michael remained silent and continued to execute the man-to-man tactics seriously. It was obvious that before the game, the big guy Michael received instructions to keep a close eye on Mike throughout the game. In a way, this was not wrong. Beep. Just as Mike led the opposing defensive players in circles again, the Melford football team completed this round of scoring. At this point, Coach Cotton on the sidelines could no longer sit still. He seemed to realize that the Melford team had no intention of using the dual core tactics so far. Chapter 241, Unstoppable Running Back, continued. If the opponent doesn't change his tactics on the offensive end, we will use the number 2 defensive tactic. Coach Cotton naturally saw that Melford had been using the long short ball tactics. Taking advantage of the opportunity of exchanging the ball again, he also issued new instructions to the players for this tactic. After the players came on the court, Coach Cotton looked at Coach George, who was sitting on the diote in the opposite Melford rest area, and fell into deep thought. The opponent clearly had a super player, but he had not used him. This made him wonder what the opponent coach was thinking. Later, when it was Melford's turn to attack again, Coach Cotton made sure that the opponent had not changed his tactics, so he shouted to his own players, "Execute the number 2 defensive plan. Pay attention to your position. Keep an eye on your target." Hearing the coach's instructions, the players of St. Mary's High School on the defensive end immediately opened up their formation. St. Mary's High School's number 2 defensive plan is the birdcage defense tactic, commonly known as the man-to-man tactic. As the players of both sides opened up their formations at the same time, the only defense opponent in front of Mike was the big guy Michael. Your coach is quite quick to react. My teammates may have to suffer a little. Mike, who had no special tactical requirements, was still very relaxed after realizing that the situation was not favorable to Melford. He was even in the mood to chat with the big guy on the opposite side. Of course, a large part of his good mentality came from his confidence in his own strength. Mike, who has super strength, has the confidence to ensure that no matter what the situation is, he can lead the Melford team to the final victory. Don't think about passing me, as if infected by Mike's attitude. The big guy Michael, who was like a dull guy throughout the game, actually responded. At this time, Mike received a pass from his teammate. He was only a transfer role player in the long and short ball tactics. He first used a fake move to deceive the big guy Michael in front of him, and then relayed the football to his teammate in front. Relax, I don't plan to break through you. Mike, who completed the relay task, looked at the big guy Michael who was close to him again, and laughed and joked. But in the face of his cheesing, the big guy on the opposite side stopped talking, and his defense attitude became more serious. No ball confrontation. This situation usually occurs when competing for key ball opportunities. Now Mike, who has no ball, does not intend to engage in meaningless confrontation with the big guy Michael. So, facing the opponent's big guy's initiative to increase the intensity, he stepped back half a step and continued to wander near the midfield. Long short ball tactics vs birdcage defense tactics. Afterwards, in the two teams' regular tactical competition, St. Mary's High School, as a veteran strong team, seemed to have more advantages. The following situation also proved this point. At the end of the first quarter, St. Mary's High School, which took the lead in changing its tactical style, completed the score reversal with a slight advantage. Coach, do we need to change tactics later? During the break in the first quarter, Captain Aaron, who saw that the team was at a disadvantage, asked Coach George for his opinion. In his opinion, it was time for Mike, the big killer, to take action. Wait a little longer. When the tactics need to be changed, I will remind you. Coach George rejected Aaron's proposal. How can you grow without experiencing pain? St. Mary's High School is a rare opponent, and the current situation is also a good opportunity for the Melford team to hone their skills. Mike, get ready. We may need your strength in a while. For the harmony of the team, Coach George has also taken great pains. While honing the team, he has not forgotten to take care of Mike's feelings. After all, it is definitely not a good feeling to be suppressed when you have the ability. I'm fine. Mike did not show any abnormality. In fact, in his opinion, the current situation is not that bad. Yes, people with sufficient strength are so confident. Seeing Mike's calm expression, the other Melford players realized that there was still an ace in the team that had not been used, and their nervousness was also relieved by half. This is also another role of the star player. Before he is defeated by the bottom test, the team can always show new fighting spirit. Okay, in the second quarter, we will continue to use the long and short ball tactics. After the 2-minute break, when the players were about to go on the court, Coach George once again confirmed the next tactical arrangement for the offensive players. After the second quarter began, when the Melford offensive team slowly adapted to the use of the long and short ball tactics in actual combat, the score was inevitably widened by the opponent. With the increasingly noisy complaints from the audience on the sidelines, at the end of the second quarter, Melford was 10 points behind the opponent. The overall situation seemed very unfriendly to the Melford team. It's time to change the tactics. Without waiting for Captain Aaron to speak, Coach George said, "You performed very well. Next, we will use a dual core tactics. Aaron, Mike, are you okay?" The goal of the tactical drill was achieved, and the 10-point gap was not a big deal for Coach George. Overall, he was quite satisfied with the performance of the players so far. Big Michael, I knew you could do it. The opponent's Mike is not your opponent at all. In the rest area of St. Mary's High School, Little Scene shared his joy with Big Michael. In fact, I haven't defeated him yet. Although Big Michael was not very smart, he also knew that in the first 2 quarters of the game, the opponent Mike did not take the initiative to break through because of the tactical arrangement. And without confrontation, how can you say you win? Don't be modest, Big Michael. No matter what, you're better than Mike on the other side. Little Scene encouraged. From a spectator's perspective, in the first 2 quarters, compared to Mike's invisibility, Big Michael at least did a very good job in helping his own quarterback score on the offensive end. Check out the correct version on 169 One Book One Bar. This situation made Little Scene feel very comfortable. Seeing Little Scene's happy look, Big Michael didn't explain, but laughed foolishly. At the same time, Little Scene noticed from the corner of his eye that his sister Collins was staring at Mike from the other team in the distance. The little guy's mood suddenly became bad, as if he had suddenly aged several years, and he shook his head helplessly. What on earth is the other coach thinking? On the other side, taking advantage of the halftime break in the second quarter, Coach Cotton once again studied Coach George's ideas. But in the end, he couldn't guess the other side's intentions. In this case, Coach Cotton could only respond to the opponent's moves in the game for a while. Finally, the third quarter began. When seeing Aaron and Mike dribbling the ball in parallel, Coach Cotton realized something was wrong. Stop them. Switch to defensive plan number 1. Last year, the dual core tactics of the Melford team left Coach Cotton with a bad memory. Now, Melford's dual core tactics have obviously taken shape, and Coach Cotton's reminder is still a step late. It's up to you. Mike facing the opponent's sudden double teaming tactics. Captain Aaron decisively threw the football to Mike on the opposite side. The dual core tactics are also known as the wolf pack tactics. When facing the opponent's defense, you can always find a suitable breakthrough point. When Mike received the ball, the only person left in front of him was the big guy Michael, who had been staring at him. At this time, the big guy sank slightly while running, trying to intercept the opponent with a waist tackle. Bang, in the teeth-grinding collision sound, the big guy Michael's tackle was not successful. He was nearly 2 meters tall, and his huge body flew backwards, as if he was hit by a motorcycle. Compared to the big guy Michael, the normal-sized Mike seemed much weaker. Therefore, this collision of small and big was particularly visually impactful. Well done. That's it. While everyone was still shocked, Sam in the Melford rest area had already jumped up excitedly. After being suppressed by the big guy for the whole game, he felt very happy when he saw that the other side suffered the same treatment as himself. It was so refreshing that it touched the soul. When Thor was abused by the Hulk, the evil god Loki also felt this feeling. Mike, go. After a short silence, the audience, who were sure that it was not an illusion, immediately gave a thunderous shout. Lina at the side of the court also led the girls in the support group to wave the ribbons in their hands in unison to cheer for Mike. Amid the huge cheers, Mike rushed into the end zone of the St. Mary's team without any difficulty. Melford scored +6. As the players chased after him and celebrated excitedly, Mike helped the team rebuild its confidence with just one active attack. Chapter 242. Wrong decision. How can he be so strong? Coach Cotton, who was in the rest area of St. Mary's High School, almost dropped his jaw when he saw the big guy Michael being knocked away. As the head coach, he was very clear about the strength of the big guy. His strong physique almost surpassed that of ordinary professional athletes. It was hard to imagine that such a player would be beaten physically in a high school game. Moreover, Coach Cotton clearly remembered that the opponent's number 23 was not so strong last year. Last year, Mike's physique had not grown up. In order to defeat St. Mary's High School in the Summer League, he had suffered a lot from the big guy Michael. In the end, although Melford won, it was a bitter victory for Mike, who was both injured in the fight with the big guy. As a result, only half a year later, Mike's strength surpassed the big guy by so much. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the strength of the two is no longer on the same level. Although he was reluctant to admit it, Coach Cotton's expression showed that he was very envious of the head coach of the Melford team. But then again, which coach doesn't want to have a player like Mike who is so strong that he can't be defeated? After being envious, Coach Cotton still didn't forget his job and reminded the stunned players on the court loudly. Pay attention to defense. The game is not over yet. Now St. Mary's High School still maintains the advantage in the score, and Cotton's long-term coaching experience tells him that a strong offensive ability like Mike's will definitely not last for a few rounds. Therefore, St. Mary's High School still has hope of winning. After another round of exchange of ball rights, St. Mary's High School also relied on the strong cover ability of the big guy Michael to maintain a huge advantage in the score. Listen, I want you to use the advantage of numbers to lock the opponent's dual cores. When Melford's offensive group appeared again, Coach Cotton issued the latest instructions for the dual core tactics. The local control tactics are best at splitting formations, so this set of tactics has a great chance to disconnect the dual core linkage of the Melford team. But Coach Cotton didn't expect that Coach George had already thought of a way to deal with local control in advance. After the second kickoff, Captain Aaron threw the football to the backfield of St. Mary's High School without thinking. Mike, who was assisting, instantly started to cross the midfield at the speed of the wind and caught the football before it landed. Then, before the opponent could react, he rushed into the end zone in a blitzkrieg. At this absolute speed, St. Mary's High School's split formation method had no time to execute. The opponent's number 23 is too powerful and must be contained. Coach Cotton was shocked by Mike's performance again, and the way of letting the opponent score easily in succession was too much of a blow to the morale of the team. Maybe St. Mary's would be defeated before Mike was tired. Coach Cotton, who was thinking more long term, seemed to have made up his mind that he would not let Mike continue to perform like this, no matter what the cost. So, in the next round of defense, Coach Cotton told the players, no matter what method you use, I want you to stop the opponent's number 23. However, the next more shocking scene happened. Mike didn't care what his opponent thought. In order to help his team catch up with the score quickly, he knocked over the big guy and several other defensive players who were blocking his way and entered the opponent's end zone again. Mike. Seeing such a passionate offensive method, the audience outside the field was also infected by the atmosphere. Unconsciously, there were uniform shouts outside the field. This is a treatment that only VIP players can enjoy. Some, who had let out his anger again on the sidelines, spontaneously joined the cheers. It turns out that this kid has secretly hidden such a trick. No wonder. After this round of attack, Coach George refreshed his understanding of Mike's strength. Therefore, he also figured out why Mike behaved so strangely in the previous training game. Unlike Coach George, who was somewhat surprised, Coach Cotton in the rest area of St. Mary's High School opposite became a dazed look. He had overestimated Mike as much as possible before, but who knew that the opponent was much stronger than he imagined. It can be said that at this moment, Coach Cotton no longer had the confidence he had before to win the game. As Mike continued to exert his strength, Melford also successfully overtook the score at the end of the third quarter. Cheer up, kids. It's not time to give up the game yet. Although he knew that there was no hope of winning, Coach Cotton decided to try again during the break in the third quarter, seeing the players' dejected appearance. As a veteran and strong team, St. Mary's High School can lose, but it can't lose in a really cowardly way. Considering Mike's strong endurance, the head coach of St. Mary's High School turned his attention to another player in the double core of the Melford team. Next, we have to change our defensive thinking a little. In the fourth quarter, I want you to focus on the opponent's quarterback. On the offensive end of St. Mary's High School, because the big guy Michael can't hold the ball, there is nothing to change in the tactical choice on the offensive end. Therefore, in order to win the game, St. Mary's team can only work hard on the defensive end. From this perspective, there is nothing wrong with Coach Cotton's latest defensive strategy. Unlike the dull atmosphere at St. Mary's High School, the players of the Melford team, which was in a very good situation, were all in a state of excitement. A correct version of the book in 16:9. After seeing Mike's powerful ability in actual combat, the entire Melford team became much more calm in momentum. This mysterious state is the sign of a team transforming into a strong team. Okay, everyone, be quiet and listen to me. After the players made a fuss, Coach George said with a smile, in the fourth quarter, we will switch to the start tactics, and everyone will play freely. Mike, is there any problem on your side? No problem, coach. I'm ready, Mike answered confidently. Because of his strength, Mike has gradually taken the dominant position in the dual core play. But in order to cooperate with Aaron, he often needs to restrain his play. Now, the star tactics of the Melford team are completely for Mike, and he no longer needs to take care of other things. 2 minutes later, the players of both sides came on the court again to fight the final victory. Beep. Melford kicks off. Captain Aaron, who is a cooperating player, receives the ball and immediately passes it to Mike. Then, as Mike rushes forward quickly, other players of Melford also move around him to provide cover. Just as Mike led his team into the opponent's end zone, there was a burst of laughter from outside the court. What are the people from St. Mary's High School doing? Are they fooled? This is too funny. Because of the focus of defense, the players of St. Mary's High School chose to keep an eye on Aaron in this round of defense. So, a funny scene happened. The players of St. Mary's High School surrounded Aaron, the toolman for passing the ball, in the midfield. On the other side, Mike, as the real core, marched into the backfield end zone of St. Mary's team without any obstruction with a large group of teammates. The two teams looked at each other from a distance, and they were clearly separated. This way of losing points also made St. Mary's High School look like a clown. There is no doubt that this was a major tactical mistake. Of course, the audience didn't think too much. They only knew that the players from St. Mary's High School had given up the game like a fool. Then, the riotous audience outside the court split into two groups, one cheering for Mike's score, and the other laughing at the players from St. Mary's High School. Beep. The whistle sounded, and Coach Cotton, who had made a major decision mistake, quickly called a timeout. Chapter 243 Victory. The situation just now was all my decision-making mistakes. Don't feel any psychological pressure. During the timeout, Coach Cotton took all the responsibility for the previous tactical mistakes. He wanted to use this method of taking the blame to calm the players down. After all, the previous defensive mistakes were too low end, which would definitely have a great impact on the players' self-confidence and morale. If this major situation is not handled properly, it may even cause the St. Mary's football team to fall from grace. From a practical point of view, Coach Cotton's previous defensive strategy did have a big problem, but the players who implemented this defensive tactic on the field also need to bear a certain responsibility for this mistake. Based on this situation, even if Coach Cotton has tried his best to comfort the players, everyone's face is still not very good. The laughter of the audience outside the field seemed to overwhelm the young players of St. Mary's High School. Their young faces were all confused, self-blame, and even angry, with various unclear and complex expressions. Seeing the current situation of the players, Coach Cotton also felt very tired. He thought he had good coaching skills, but for some reason, he always felt that he was suppressed by the other coach's intelligence when making the tactical decision for this game. For a mature head coach, this feeling of gap in the dark makes people feel very uncomfortable. In the next game, we will resume the birdcage defense tactic. But if conditions permit, I still hope that you can pay more attention to the opponent's number 23. As the 1-minute timeout ended, Coach Cotton suppressed his distracting thoughts and issued new tactical requirements to the players. It can be seen that Coach Cotton was much more conservative in the tactical choice this time. Big Michael, come on, you are always the best. When the St. Mary's football team re-entered the court, Little Scene, who was holding a SLR camera, gave a huge cheer. The big guy Michael, who originally looked self-blaming, turned his head and showed a silly smile after hearing the cheering of the little guy. And when he turned his head again, his eyes had become firm. In the remaining games of the fourth quarter, the St. Mary's players who had just made a big joke inevitably became timid in both offense and defense. Therefore, the team made several small mistakes. On the Melford side, with Mike's leadership, they fought more and more bravely. Anyone can see that the two teams had become polarized in momentum. As time went on, the Melford team, which had a strong desire to attack, also opened up the score little by little. Driven by this trend, the players of St. Mary's High School gave up resistance one after another. However, among the players of St. Mary's who were playing badly, the big guy Michael became an outlier. He silently executed the tactics from beginning to end. Although he was knocked over by Mike again and again at the end of the fourth quarter, he got up again and again, and continued to execute the coach's tactics firmly. Obviously, this big guy who is not good at speaking, did not give up the game. It seems that St. Mary's High School is not all good for nothings. In fact, the big guy's not bad. Infected by the tenacious spirit of the big guy Michael, the audience outside the court talked about him, and laughed less at the St. Mary's team. Similarly, the performance of the big guy was also seen by his teammates. First they didn't understand, then they appreciated. Finally, the players of St. Mary's High School seemed to be infected by the big guy's will. They followed each other spontaneously and joined the game. Then, after experiencing ups and downs and untied their knots, the overall strength of the St. Mary's football team seemed to have been sublimated. It was just a pity that they met Mike, who executed the star tactics. Mike, who had no worries, could still easily rush into the opponent's end zone again and again when facing the St. Mary's team that had regained its morale, accompanied by the warm cheers outside the field, when Mike once again knocked over several defensive players of the opponent with the ball and rushed all the way into the opponent's end zone. The whistle of the end of the game sounded on the field 57:39. The Melford team won the normal game with an absolute advantage. Then, with the audience shouting and cheering, the scene turned into a lively ocean. Some people in the crowd threw their objects into the sky to celebrate, some punched their fists to vent their emotions, and more people hugged their friends beside them. Mike, who was the hero of the team's victory, was holding the football and waving his arms gently at the audience outside the field, who was shouting his name crazily. This feeling of being the center of attention was actually not bad. At the same time, Mike, who was enjoying the audience's admiration, saw from the corner of his eye that the big guy who had just been knocked over by him outside the end zone had not gotten up. "Big guy, are you okay?" Mike stepped forward to confirm the big guy's situation. He was thinking in his mind whether he had not restrained his strength and hurt him before. "I'm fine." The big guy, Michael, who had recovered, got up by himself. After seeing the person in front of him clearly, he said seriously, "You are awesome." The big guy seemed to have been impressed by Mike's strength, but he was not good at speaking, and he couldn't think of any good words to praise him for a while. "You are not bad either. I'm optimistic about your future." Mike smiled friendly. A perfect version of the book in 1619. He had a good impression of this big guy. But before the two of them could have more exchanges, the Melford players who arrived later, led by George and Aaron, excitedly lifted Mike up. Then, a group of people excitedly carried Mike around the field, accepting a new round of cheers from the audience. After a warm celebration, when Mike came to the sidelines surrounded by a group of players, Jack squeezed over with two TV reporters. "Mike, do you still recognize me?" Compared with last year's sloppy image, Jack, who now wears a tie, looks much more energetic. "Of course, Jack. Congratulations on becoming the leader of the reporter team," Mike greeted skillfully. Because they had the experience of working together to make money last year, the two had several phone calls afterwards. "It's nothing, just a team leader." When talking about the progress of work, Jack couldn't hide the proud smile on his face. Although Jack is now only a team leader of the sports reporter group, he has entered the leadership level in terms of organization. "Okay, let's not talk about this." Jack, who had been showing off a little, got down to business. "I want to take a few photos of you." "Make a poster?" Mike asked while adjusting his hair. "No, we'll discuss the poster later." Jack explained, "I'm going to publish a special news for you, and I need your photos." Jack, who placed his bet on Mike last year, also consolidated his position in the TV station. In return, he planned to help Mike become famous. Of course, as an adult, Jack also had some selfish motives. That is, if he succeeded in helping Mike become famous this time, he would most likely be able to take a step further in his position at the TV station. It can be said that this time, Jack still chose to place his bet on Mike again. So that's it. Mike didn't hate the feeling of being famous, so he cooperated and posed handsomely. Then, Jack directed his men to set up the camera and took several photos of Mike. TSK looking at the handsome images in the camera, Jack exclaimed, "Believe me, you will soon become a football star in Texas." In fact, compared to being a football star, Jack had something else to say. That is, he felt that Mike was more suitable to be a star in Hollywood. With his looks, it would be no problem for him to charm a large number of young female fans if he wanted to. "Good luck to you." Mike, who had completed the task of taking photos, was about to walk towards Lena and others. "Wait, Mike," Jack whispered. "Do you see those people with baseball caps over there? They are scouts from various college football teams. If you want to develop in football, you must perform well in the next invitational tournament." The high school spring invitational tournament can be said to be another crazy march. Scouts from various universities will also take this opportunity to observe high school students they think have potential. When the graduation season comes in June, these scouts will introduce those high school students with potential to their own universities. Thank you for your reminder. Mike glanced at the college scouts in the crowd and didn't take it seriously. On the one hand, he is only in the 11th grade this year and has not yet graduated. On the other hand, it is because he has never considered entering college as a sports specialty student. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244. After the game. Mike, you are so cool. When Mike said goodbye to reporter Jack and went to the rest area, Lena immediately gave him a hug. On the side, Katie and Peggy looked at him with eyes that flashed with a different kind of brilliance. Obviously, Mike's wonderful performance on the field before not only conquered the audience, but also made Lena and others admire him. So they were deeply fascinated by him. On the other side, the game process also came to the handshake between the coaches of both sides. Congratulations, Coach George. Melford has an amazing player. Coach Cotton took the initiative to extend his hand. In this game, Mike has fully proved that he has the ability to lead a team alone. This kind of leadership ability is a star player seedling. The big guy on your side is also very good. If nothing unexpected happens, he will definitely become an excellent professional player in the future, Coach George said sincerely. Although St. Mary's High School lost the game today, the performance of the big guy Michael and the team is still remarkable. Whether it is physical talent or willpower, he has shown a strong side. With these two characteristics, Michael, a big guy, is fully capable of making a name for himself in the professional arena. When Coach Cotton heard Coach George praising Michael, he rarely smiled. It is obvious that Coach Cotton feels very accomplished to be able to tap into the ability of Michael, a big guy. Moreover, today's game also helped the St. Mary's football team retain the last bit of dignity with the opponent's tenacious spirit. Afterwards, the two head coaches also tacitly carried out a wave of commercial praise during the handshake session. Before leaving, Coach Cotton took the initiative to say, "George, I'm very interested in your tactical arrangements. Can we communicate privately when we have time?" In June this year, Michael, a big guy, will graduate from high school. In order to prevent the team's performance from plummeting, Coach Cotton wanted to learn from Coach George's coaching experience. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, the strength of the Melford High School football team can be greatly improved in such a short period of time, which must be inseparable from George, the head coach. It is my honor to exchange tactical experience with you, Coach George replied with a smile. In fact, he also admired Coach Cotton's ability to respond on the spot in tactics. George would not refuse to exchange ideas with such an experienced coach. After that, the two head coaches happily exchanged contact information before they left the field with satisfaction. Mike after the whole game was over, Scene came to the Melford rugby team's rest area at some point and waved desperately at Mike, who was chatting with the girls. "What's wrong, Scene?" Mike came to the rest area and said jokingly, "Are you going to help that big guy and ask me for justice?" The big guy limped when he left the field before, and it was obvious that he had suffered a minor injury. It is not difficult to imagine that it was all thanks to Mike. "No, Michael will get back on his own about the things on the field. I came here this time to give you this." As he said that, Scene handed over a small note. "What does this mean?" Looking at the string of phone numbers on the note, Mike didn't match the other party's train of thought. "That's my sister Colin's phone number. She's your fan." Little Scene knew very well that his sister was obsessed with Mike. Because of this, while he was betraying his sister, he also keenly noticed Katie and Lina behind Mike. In a very short time, Little Scene analyzed that his sister didn't seem to have an advantage in terms of appearance. "Are you going to introduce me to a girlfriend?" Mike continued to ask with a smile. This little guy's brain circuit is really strange. "It's not certain now. We don't know your personality. I just want to create an opportunity for you to get to know each other," Little Scene confessed. Just then, Collins came over. "Little Scene, what are you doing? We should go. Mom and Dad are waiting for you." The bus of St. Mary's High School had already left, and the Tosi couple who came to watch the game were also preparing to return with their family. Little Scene's free movement obviously delayed his family's itinerary. "This is my sister, Collins Tosi." Little Scene raised his eyebrows at Mike, lowered his voice and continued, "I'll tell you a secret. There's a poster of you hanging in my sister's room." Without waiting for Mike to react, Little Scene turned to his sister and introduced, "Collins, he's Mike. You should be familiar with him." Collins, who was embarrassed by Little Scene's actions, glared at him, and then said to Mike apologetically, "My brother is not very sensible. If he offends you, I apologize to you on his behalf." "No, your brother is quite interesting." Mike's eyes turned around the siblings, and said with a smile, "That's good." Collins smiled. Then, she wanted to take the opportunity to say something else, but after seeing Mike's handsome appearance up close, her brain was a little overloaded, so she quickly said, "Sorry, we're in a hurry." The girl regretted her insincere words as soon as they came out. Collins felt that her performance was very embarrassing and just wanted to escape from here quickly. Then, she took Little Scene and walked quickly towards her parents. Little Scene saw his sister's reaction and shook his head helplessly. Deciding to help her again, he secretly made a gesture to Mike before leaving, saying, "Remember to call Mike. My parents are not at home today. Are you going to the farm to play later?" After the Tosi siblings left, Lina immediately invited Mike to a date. Maybe Collins himself didn't notice it just now, but her performance after seeing Mike was completely like a girl in love. In addition, the other party's appearance was not inferior to hers, which made Lina a little jealous. Therefore, the girl also decided to give Mike some sweetness, so that she could keep a place in the other party's heart. A correct version of the book in 1619. "Okay, just treat it as a spring outing." Mike smiled and responded to the girl's kindness. "Spring is here, and it's time to go." Spring outing. Lina's farm is very large, just right for spring outings. "Add me, I happen to have nothing to do today," Katie said unwillingly. "And me." Peggy didn't know what she was thinking, and then she started to join in the fun. Mike was sure that with Peggy's intelligence, she would definitely know what would happen at Lina's farm in a while. He didn't dare let the little girl participate in such things. "That Peggy, it's not convenient today. How about I take you to the amusement park when I'm free?" Mike comforted the little girl, asking her not to make trouble. Okay, Peggy was still a child after all, and the amusement park was very attractive to her. Therefore, she chose to let Mike go for the time being. After reaching a consensus with the girls, Mike handed the protective helmet to George and left the campus with Lina and Katie under the envious look of the other party. Mike, whose physical fitness was already beyond the standard, did not sweat much during the entire invitational competition today, so he could wash up in time after the spring outing. The Tosi family, driving home. Collins, Mike is very popular with girls. If you are interested in him, you should learn to be more proactive. In the backseat of the private car, Scene whispered to his sister, "Don't talk nonsense. Who is interested in him? We haven't even met a few times." Collins retorted guiltily, but looking at the expression on the girl's face, she seemed to be hiding something. In fact, when she was at the game before, Collins saw Little Scene go to find Mike, so she took the initiative to take the task of calling the little guy home. The little thoughts are self-evident. Just as Little Scene felt, her sister was indeed fascinated by Mike. "So, you are not interested in Mike?" "That's just right. I don't like him either. He is too much like the pretty boy villain in the TV series," Little Scene said deliberately like a little adult. Seeing that his brother misunderstood, Collins was about to explain. At this time, Mrs. Tosi, who was listening in the front row, suddenly turned her head and gossiped, "What are you talking about? Is there a boy that Collins likes?" The family education of the Tosi family is very open-minded, and Collins is already 18 years old, so Mrs. Tosi will not stop her daughter from dating. "The Mike you are talking about, is it the number 23 of the Melford team today? He is indeed a great guy." Mr. Tosi, who was driving, also joined the conversation. "Collins, I don't object to you dating, but before you confirm the relationship, I hope you can bring the other party to my house for a meal." Mr. Towsey, who has independently created a restaurant chain business model, is obviously more tactful in dealing with people. After eavesdropping on his daughter's little secret, he quickly thought that inviting the boy to his home for dinner would not only not destroy his relationship with his daughter, but also help his daughter to check. "Dad, what are you talking about? I'm not that familiar with Mike." Seeing that his father was getting more and more excessive, Collins denied his relationship with Mike in an attempt to cover up. And the people who know their children best are definitely parents. The Towsey couple in the front row looked at each other silently, and they knew that their daughter might have really fallen this time. Then, the two chatted about the topic of Mike. Chapter 245, Rising Fame. Time flies, and it's Monday again. Is Mike still awake again? Grandma Connie, who had prepared a breakfast sandwich, asked Peggy, who was sitting obediently at the dining table. "No, maybe I was too tired the past 2 days." A trace of resentment appeared on Peggy's obedient little face. Mike accompanied Katie and Lina on the spring outing for the 2 days of the weekend, so he naturally ignored the little girl. Moreover, Peggy knew what Mike and the other two did during those 2 days. Okay, Grandma Connie knew Mike's private life very well. She shrugged and said, "You go and call him out for breakfast, and I'll go check today's newspaper to see if there's anything interesting happening." Because the internet is not yet developed enough, the most convenient way for people to receive information nowadays is newspapers. Every morning, there will be a newspaper boy who delivers the new issue of newspapers to every household's mailbox. When Grandma Connie brought back a pile of rolled newspapers from the door, Mike was also called up by the little girl to wash up. "Mike, I have to remind you that you are still young and need to be moderate," Grandma Connie persuaded Mike while unfolding the newspaper. As a person who has experienced it, she knows that young people who consume too much energy are very harmful to their health. "What?" Mike, who had just squeezed toothpaste on his toothbrush, almost suspected that he was hallucinating. However, he soon realized that Grandma Connie was concerned about him. Knowing that the other party must have misunderstood something, Mike then explained helplessly, "I'm fine, I just slept in." Because there were 2 ladies in the house, Mike couldn't explain too bluntly. In fact, with his current physique, it would be fine, even if he drove all day, and there was no problem with lack of energy at all. The reason why he couldn't get up in the morning was entirely because he had the habit of sleeping in, and he would sleep until he woke up naturally every day. However, seeing the distrustful eyes of Grandma Connie and Peggy, Mike felt that he should change his habit of sleeping in the future. Grandma Connie did misunderstand again. She thought Mike was being stubborn. After all, boys love face and will definitely not admit that they are not good enough. Just as she was about to persuade Mike, her eyes were suddenly attracted by the newspaper in her hand. "Oh, Mike, you're on the front page, and it's a color page," Grandma Connie exclaimed, forgetting what she wanted to say before. Today's newspaper headline used a large color page to print Mike's photo. In the picture, Mike was wearing an olive suit, and under the sunlight, he was handsome with a wild charm. That was the photo Mike took just after the game. "Really? I didn't expect Jack to be so fast," Mike, who was brushing his teeth, said vaguely. Of course he remembered what reporter Jack said before, but he didn't expect that the other party would really do it, and the efficiency was so fast. Texas, rising football star. Peggy also curiously leaned in front of the newspaper and read the front page headline. Mike quickly brushed his teeth and came to the dining table and leaned in front of the newspaper with Grandma Connie and Peggy. "This layout is really bad." Looking at the front page, his photo took up more than half of the space. Mike couldn't help complaining. If there were no small words below to explain the relevant explanation, Mike would have suspected that the newspaper was deliberately using his beautiful photos to make money. "This is playing rugby, right? The photo is really good." Grandma Connie was attracted by the photo and asked with interest, "Mike, when is your next game? I can go to the scene to support you this Saturday morning, but I don't know if the home court will still be in Melford," Mike replied. As far as he knows, the opponent of this week's invitational tournament has not been determined, so it is still unclear where the home court will be. "It doesn't matter, let me know when the venue is determined." Grandma Connie was obviously aroused by the photo and was interested in watching the game. sunshine, sports, plus handsome men. I can only say that the photo is too confusing. Just then, Mike's phone rang. Who called so early? After answering the phone, Mike asked, "Who are you looking for?" "It's me, Jack." Jack's slightly excited voice came from the phone. "Have you seen today's newspaper? Our plan is about to succeed." "What plan?" "Star-making plan?" Before Mike could ask out his doubts, Jack on the other end of the phone continued to talk like pouring beans. "You don't know how much effort I put into this front page. By the way, there is another good news for you. If this issue of the newspaper sells well, there will be many more front pages waiting for you. Think about it, that's a series of colorful headlines. Well, it seems that the newspaper does have a plan to create a star. And Jack, who is about to promote this plan, is now a little incoherent with excitement. But this is understandable. After all, if the star-making plan succeeds, Jack, the initiator, will definitely get a lot of credit from it. "Wait, Jack." Mike interrupted him and asked, "I want to know, are you going to pay me for my portrait?" Jack was stunned by Mike's question. He was silent for a long time before asking, "Are you serious? We are obviously discussing business, but you ask me if my eyes are dry? You know, no news figure has ever mentioned money to the newspaper before." "I'm serious," Mike replied. "Such a large photo is obviously not news in the general sense. A perfect version at 1619 book bar. Mike really needs to protect his portrait rights." "Okay, your situation is a bit special. I will report it to the higher-ups. But don't hold your hopes too high." Jack doesn't have to pay, so he naturally doesn't want to offend Mike. From a personal point of view, Jack actually hopes to see a domineering newspaper company do something. "That's it for now, and I'll contact you if there's any situation." Mike, who was in a hurry in the morning, hung up the phone immediately. "Well done, Mike. Those capitalists should be made to bleed." After hearing the content of the negotiation, Grandma Connie supported Mike without thinking it was a big deal. "You know, as an information giant today, the newspaper company is not short of money. Okay, have breakfast quickly. You're going to be late after the episode." Grandma Connie looked at the time and urged Mike and the others again. Of course, the main reason was to urge Mike, who was late. Okay, I'll leave now." Mike, who was a little scared by Grandma Connie's stare, drank the milk in the cup in one gulp, picked up the sandwich in front of him and stood up. "Peggy, are you ready? We should go." Peggy, who had been prepared for a long time, picked up the pink school bag beside her and walked out first in a huff. Seeing the two people, one big and one small, leaving in a hurry, Grandma Connie smiled and shook her head. When Mike and the others arrived at the school gate, they just heard the bell for class. "Can't you get up a little earlier in the morning?" Little girl Peggy, who was still a little resentful of Mike, took advantage of the situation after seeing that they were late. "It's not my fault. It was all delayed by that phone call. Jack needs to be responsible for our lateness." Mike cleverly passed the buck. Of course, there was one more thing he didn't say. If the little girl's short legs could run faster on the road, the two would not be late at all. "Forget it, I forgive you." Peggy, who was not really angry in the first place, vented her anger and didn't make trouble anymore. Then, the two of them entered the campus as the bell rang. In fact, the two people with high IQs didn't care much about being late for class. After all, they had already learned the high school courses by themselves. Later, when Mike reported to the classroom, he found that the atmosphere in the class was very strange today. Many students were staring at him. Football, photos, front page. Then, from the students' whispered discussions, Mike knew why everyone was so abnormal. Obviously, this was the power of the colorful headlines in today's newspapers. Chapter 246, Rising Fame, continued. "Be quiet, you are students, and now is class time." Feeling the increasing commotion below, Ms. Victoria at the podium slammed the table heavily with a dark face. The effect was obvious. The 11th grade students were still quite afraid of this eccentric head teacher. The classroom immediately became quiet, but as the class time went on, the students who were full of curiosity about Mike began to discuss in a low voice unconsciously. In this way, time came to noon. On the way to the school cafeteria, Mike found that there were more students expressing goodwill to him on campus today. In the past, it was only girls who would intentionally approach Mike on the road. Today, there are actually many boys who will nod and say hello to Mike in a friendly manner when they meet him. It must be said that today's newspapers still have a high credibility in people's minds. Obviously, it is because Mike made the colorful headlines of today's newspaper that he quickly became a celebrity in the school. Mike, guess what I found this morning? George, who was preparing to eat lunch in the middle of the cafeteria, saw Mike coming over to get his lunch and couldn't help his strong desire to communicate. What did you find? Did I make the headlines? Mike asked with a smile. No. George shared in a low voice with a gossipy look. Do you know that many girls put your big head stickers in their lockers today? In a very private place like a locker, students usually have some of their own little secrets. For example, secretly put the photos of the boys or girls they like in the locker for easy appreciation. This is not uncommon for adolescent students. Really? Mike also knew some of the secrets in the locker. He said indifferently, as far as I know, it seems that a girl put my photo in the locker last year. This is not news. Seeing Mike's indifferent look, George had reason to believe that he was pretending. However, after seeing the two beautiful women sitting next to him, George was left with envy. In order to avoid a second blow, he wisely stopped talking about girls and photos. It was afternoon outdoor exercise class. Coach George, who was standing by the training ground, watched Mike lead his teammates to score again with an unreasonable offensive route and did not raise any questions. In sports, the winner is king. Obviously, Mike has proved himself with his strength. Wayne, what do you think about inviting Austin High School to be our opponent in the next game? After a while, Coach George asked the assistant coach next to him. Last year, the Melford team lost to Austin High School in the first round of the top 10 in the state. Coach George was obviously not satisfied with this result. Austin? That's not good. Assistant coach Wayne thought for a while and said, the team is getting a lot of attention now. Maybe we can continue to find some weak teams from the surrounding areas as opponents. Assistant coach Wayne also saw the front page of today's newspaper. It can be imagined that, if the team can continue to get good results in the next game, Mike's reputation will definitely be higher. Similarly, the team's popularity will also increase. In this important period of time, to expand the team's popularity, it is particularly important for the team to be able to win more games steadily. No, with the team's current level, they deserve stronger opponents. Coach George looked at his old colleague and said seriously, I know what you are thinking. But sometimes it is not a good thing to only pick weak teams to win. Fighting with chickens will only lower your own level. And even if you win by bullying the weak, you will feel that you have won unfairly. Only by competing with powerful opponents who are evenly matched can you show your strength. Coach George obviously also knew about the newspaper. In his opinion, it is good to be able to win more games steadily, but it is more important to be able to compete with powerful opponents and hone the players. And he believes in his players and thinks they may win more. Therefore, between a small win without difficulty and a difficult winner takes all, Coach George chose the latter. As an old colleague for many years, assistant coach Wayne quickly understood George's idea. Okay, you are the boss. I will listen to you. Looking at the teenagers sweating on the court, assistant coach Wayne also felt a little excited. Time came to the evening. In the Cooper's restaurant, Missy, holding a newspaper with Mike's picture, buzzed around Mike, the person involved, like a happy little bee. Although the little girl didn't understand many things, she also knew that people who could be in the newspaper must be very powerful. Therefore, Mike's being in the newspaper was worth celebrating. Just then, Mike's phone rang. Mike, you are going to be famous. Can you believe it? Today's newspaper uppercase rate has reached an astonishing 9 points. Do you know what this means? After the call was connected, the excited voice of reporter Jack came. Because it is a subscription model, the circulation of newspapers every day is basically fixed. Only when a certain issue of the newspaper is extremely memorable will someone choose to uppercase and collect it. The 9-point uppercase rate shows that about 1 out of every 10 people who have subscribed to the newspaper will take the initiative to go to the newsstand and choose to repeat the purchase of this issue of the newspaper. There is no wrong version in the 16-9 book bar. And today's newspaper sales just show how popular Mike is. "So, how much money does the newspaper plan to give me this time?" Mike interrupted Jack's enthusiastic voice and asked the question he was concerned about. It is not difficult to imagine that most of the people who bought back the newspaper today are probably women, and they are attracted by Mike's handsome image in the newspaper. Therefore, he did not feel embarrassed to mention the money again. This is not a question of money, but influence. Influence, you know? Speaking of money again, Jack on the other end of the phone was a little furious. As a person in the information industry, he knew very well how much invisible benefits a good reputation would bring to people. Compared with the benefits brought by reputation, money is not a problem at all. But Mike did not think so. Compared with the illusory reputation and vanity, he obviously felt that it was more cost effective to talk about money. "Okay, you win." Seeing that the other party was not on the same channel as him, reporter Jack was defeated. Then, he explained, "The people in the newspaper are still discussing the issue of your share, and it is likely that someone will come to you for a detailed discussion later. In addition, the newspaper is ready to cooperate with you on the distribution of your posters. I wonder if you are interested." "Poster distribution? Tell me more." Mike became interested. Compared with private workshops, newspapers obviously have wider distribution channels. This approach of expanding the scale of business is obviously more profitable, even if the individual's share ratio is lower. It's just a way to make a living, so there's no need to shudder. The newspaper knows that we sold posters last year, so they are going to intervene. The specific share ratio may not be very good. As if dissatisfied with the newspaper's arbitrary intervention, Jack paused and whispered, "Your current market is very good, so I think you can ask for more when you discuss cooperation with the newspaper. Maybe 4 layers of net profit is very suitable. I'm very interested in cooperating with the newspaper, but I don't think 4 layers of profit is realistic." In business, although he knew that the other party had good intentions, Mike was still soberly aware that it was impossible for him to take 4 layers of net profit alone in his own situation. "Okay, I will convey your willingness to cooperate to the newspaper, and you can handle the specific situation yourself. See you on Saturday." Obviously, Jack was not convenient to say too much on the phone. "Okay, see you on Saturday." Mike also needed to think carefully about where the newspaper's bottom line of interests was. After hanging up the phone, Mike found that everyone in the restaurant was looking at him. Apparently, they had all heard about the cooperation. "Mike, was it the call from that person this morning?" Grandma Connie asked with concern. "Yes, he told me that the newspaper wants to cooperate with me." Mike had nothing to hide from the Cooper family, so he told them about the cooperation in issuing posters. "Are you negotiating the profit sharing? Maybe I can help." After hearing the whole story, Peggy said with interest, "For a super prodigy, she needs a little challenge. Of course, it may also be that she simply wants to help Mike a little. I can also help you draft a business cooperation contract, provided that I need to use your computer to check the newspaper's business situation first." Little Sheldon, who is also a super prodigy, also has a strong interest in cooperating with the newspaper. "It's settled. The contract is left to you." Mike, who was happy to be free, chose to assign the task and stay behind to check it. "Okay, we'll talk about Mike's matter later. Now it's time for us to pray before dinner." At the sumptuous dinner table, Mary smiled and reminded everyone to prepare for dinner. "You know, after Mike's phone call just now, it's almost past dinner time." Chapter 247 Winning Streak. Time flies and it's weekend again. The Melford football players got on the bus to Austin High School. After communication with assistant coach Wayne, Austin High School agreed to the invitational match with the Melford team. Behind the bus to Austin High School, there were 2 private cars. Grandma Connie and Professor John were sitting in one car. The other was driven by Mary, with little Sheldon, Missy and Peggy. For this special collective family activity, Mary asked the church for a day off. As an old sports powerhouse, the students of Austin High School support football uniforms as much as Melford. Therefore, when Mike and his team arrived at Austin High School, they saw a large group of students holding signs saying "Austin, come on." After several home games, the Melford football team finally enjoyed the treatment of playing away. In order to stabilize the players' mentality of playing away games, Coach George spoke to comfort everyone after getting off the bus. At this time, reporter Jack and two colleagues from the newspaper came to the Melford bus. "Hi, Mike. We meet again." Jack, who was able to continue to promote the star-making plan, seemed to be in a good mood. After greeting Mike, he found Coach George. "Hello, Coach George," Jack said familiarly. "Can I take a few group photos of your team? You know that the state newspaper is digging up Mike's deeds, so we need more materials." Coach George was no stranger to Jack, and he also knew that it was the other party who was promoting Mike's star-making plan. Therefore, Coach George readily agreed to his request. "No problem. How do you need us to cooperate?" Being on the newspaper is not just Mike's personal matter, but also a good opportunity for the Melford rugby team to expand its popularity. After reaching a consensus, Jack's two colleagues from the newspaper set up their camera equipment and took several group photos of the Melford rugby team. After that, they took a few private photos of Mike alone. Don't forget to discuss cooperation with the newspaper after the game. After taking photos of Mike, reporter Jack smiled and encouraged him. "Come on, this invitational tournament is equally important to Melford High School and the newspaper. If the games continue to win, Melford will be able to establish its position as a strong sports school, and the newspaper will also be able to better implement the star-making plan." When Mike and Jack said goodbye and returned to the team, George came over excitedly. "Mike, do you think our group photo can be on the front page of the newspaper?" A teenager who is only 16 or 17 years old cannot resist the temptation of fame. The other members of the team were also watching silently at this time. "It should be no problem." Mike gave a satisfactory answer. According to the newspaper's continuous reporting for 7 consecutive days, this group photo of everyone and Mike will probably be published next week. "Great. I didn't expect that I would be published one day." George cheered. The football players who also heard Mike's answer also smiled. That is the performance of vanity being satisfied. "Okay, calm down, everyone. We'll discuss the newspaper later. Now we need to consider how to beat Austin High School." Coach George called back the players' hearts. After emphasizing the importance of this game again, he arranged for the players to go to the field to warm up, prepare for the next game. Maybe the recent newspaper reports made the Melford football team worth investigating. During the warm-up period, Mike found several people wearing baseball caps on the sidelines, who looked like scouts in the crowd. Of course, these people didn't mean much to Mike. Soon it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and the invitational tournament started on time. Coach George, who was patient, still let the players use the long and short ball tactics in the first quarter of the game. This is to test the team's current actual combat strength. Compared with the opponent in the last game, this time's opponent Austin High School is obviously stronger, and it is a top 10 team in the state. Last year, they defeated Melford and advanced to the semifinals of the Summer League. Aaron is optimistic about the position of his teammates. Pay attention to the cooperation. Comparing the foundation with the old and strong team actually made Coach George equally nervous. Fortunately, the Melford team played at a very good pace in the first quarter. With a qualified quarterback like Captain Aaron, the Melford football team did not fall behind the opponent at the end of the first quarter. "Well done, Aaron." Coach George affirmed Aaron's contribution during the break in the first quarter. Then, he changed the subject and looked at the other players and said, "Of course, you are all good. Next is the time for us to counterattack. In the second quarter, I want you to adopt the dual core tactics." Coach George, who basically understood the difference in strength between the two sides, wanted to further control the rhythm of the game. Next, the Melford team, with a strong desire to attack, completed the score reversal in the second quarter. "Okay, everyone, take a break. In the third quarter, we will use the start tactics. Mike, is there any problem with your side?" During the halftime break in the second quarter, Coach George arranged the subsequent tactics according to the team's situation. Mike's strong personal strength also made Coach George see that Captain Aaron has gradually become a supporting role in the dual core tactics. Read the correct version in 16:9. One book, one forum. Rather than letting the team continue to hone inappropriate tactics, it is better to let Mike give it a try. Star tactics, victory, or defeat depends on one person. In the subsequent games, Mike did not disappoint everyone. With the few cheers from Grandma Connie and Peggy on the sidelines, he used exquisite passing skills to violently attack the Austin team's defense again and again. As the saying goes, if you defend too long, you will lose. Until the end of the game, Mike's super high scoring efficiency allowed the Melford team to defeat the opponent with a large score advantage. Hello, Mike. I'm a scout from Beta University. Are you interested in learning about our school's football team? Mike, I'm a scout from the University of Dallas. Learn about the Rice University football team. When Mike walked off the field, after celebrating his victory, he was immediately surrounded by a group of college scouts. Obviously, Mike's victory with high gold content not only defeated his opponents, but also conquered the scouts who came to watch the game. The college football league is closer to professional games, so it also has the right to sell tickets. In this case, it is very important for them to have a star player who can boost ticket sales. Judging from this game, Mike already has this potential. Sorry, I'm only in grade 11 this year, and I don't plan to skip a grade to enter college. Mike, who received a lot of business cards, calmly rejected the invitation of the scouts. He knew the intentions of these scouts very well. Due to the regulations of the Football Development League, there is a clause that does not pay salaries to players in school. This is a regulation to ensure the purity of athletes in school, but it gives the University Athletic Association an opportunity to take advantage of it. In this environment, it is not difficult to imagine that the group of college scouts in front of Mike who are ready to pick up leaks are definitely here for the purpose of sucking blood. Therefore, after Mike rejected them many times, the scouts still refused to leave. Reporter Jack discovered the situation here and took to colleagues from the newspaper to protect Mike to the side. You are really popular now. After helping to avoid the scouts, Jack smiled and teased Mike, and then continued, have you considered cooperating with the newspaper? Of course, for this matter, I specially found several helpers. Mike is not careless about making money. While he was talking, Grandma Connie and others also rushed over. Among them, little Sheldon, who looked serious and had a folder on his arm and looked like a little businessman, was very eye-catching. After the handshake session with Coach George was over, Mike called him and little George again, and the group followed Jack to the headquarters of the state TV station. As for the rest of the team, after Mike promised a party, they were handed over to assistant coach Wayne to take them back to the town of Telford. Chapter 248 Cooperation. Texas Information Communication Company TV station can be divided into the TV Information Department and the Newspaper Information Department according to different forms of communication. According to the positions, there is no difference between the two departments. But anyone with a discerning eye can see that with the continuous development of technology and the popularity of television, the importance of the TV department has gradually surpassed the newspaper department. As for reporter Jack, although he implemented the star-making plan, his position as a team leader is still not ranked in the newspaper headquarters. When he brought Mike and his party to the state TV station, before he went to the office of the newspaper manager, he was replaced by a sweet-looking secretary. Mike, as far as I know, the bottom line of the newspaper is 2.5. I wish you good luck. Before leaving, Jack whispered some inside information to Mike. Mike, who received the inside information, did not show any abnormality. After he glanced at Jack meaningfully, he quietly followed the secretary to the office of the newspaper manager. Along the way, Mike and his party also received curious looks from many TV station staff. After all, there were old people and children in their group, and the combination was very strange. The key point was that there was also a handsome guy like Mike. Finally, after turning a few corners, the secretary led the group to the manager's office. Mr. Mike, the manager is waiting for you inside. As for your friends, I will arrange for them to wait in the lounge. The secretary said politely at the door. Sorry, this is my guardian, and the others are also my family. I want them to accompany me to discuss such an important matter as the contract. Mike gestured to Grandma Connie and others, and expressed his thoughts. Okay, the secretary looked at Mike's handsome face, and was also moved by his sincerity, and then said, please follow me. The newspaper manager was a bald middle-aged man with a beer belly that made him look a little plump. However, the pair of shrewd little eyes on his face made him look difficult to talk to. At this moment, seeing the secretary leading a large group of people in, the manager's little eyes showed a look of surprise, but he quickly regained his calm. "Manager James, this is Mr. Mike you are looking for. The others are his family members who came with him," the secretary explained to the manager. Manager James, who was sitting behind the desk, glanced at the crowd again. When he saw the face of Mike, the person involved, he frowned slightly. Then, he turned his eyes to the secretary and said, "Lisa, there is nothing for you here. Go make me a cup of civet coffee. Remember to add more sugar." After sending the secretary away, he smiled and invited, "Mr. Mike and your family, please sit down on both sides of the desk. There are 2 rows of sofas for receiving guests." However, looking at the figure of Manager James sitting firmly behind the desk, he did not seem to have any intention of talking to Mike at close range. "Oh, look at my memory. I forgot to ask you what you want to drink." After Mike and others sat down, Manager James pretended to apologize and asked, "How about civet coffee? Ordinary people can't taste such high-end coffee at all." "Thank you, I'm not thirsty." Listening to the manager's introduction with a sense of superiority, Mike decisively rejected the other party's kindness. Manager James seemed to have malicious intentions, since Mike and his group came in. Just like now, the secretary had already left the office to prepare coffee, and he asked Mike and his group what they wanted to drink in a hypocritical manner. This hypocritical behavior is even worse than hindsight. "What kind of coffee is civet coffee? Is it delicious?" Little George, who did not understand the other party's malicious intentions, asked curiously in a low voice. Civet coffee, also known as cat feces coffee, is the product of civet cats excreting coffee beans intact after eating coffee fruits. Without waiting for Manager James to explain, Peggy gave the answer first. Then, she also explained intimately, "It is best to add less sugar and milk to civet coffee, so that you can drink its original flavor." Cat feces, original flavor. Knowing the process of obtaining the raw materials of civet coffee, Little George showed a horrified expression, and his resistance to this kind of coffee was written on his face. At this time, the secretary returned to the office with a cup of hot coffee. "Manager, this is the coffee you requested. Is there anything else I can help you with?" the secretary asked attentively, after delivering the coffee to the manager. "There is nothing for you here. Please go out first." Manager James replied with a dark face. After listening to the explanation just now by Miss Peggy, the civet coffee that used to be fragrant was not palatable to Manager James today. Carefully pushed the civet coffee aside. Manager James, who was relieved, talked about business. "Mr. Mike, you can leave all the matters concerning your poster cooperation to us. You don't have to worry about anything. You just need to wait until the day when your posters are all over Texas, and you will be completely famous." As expected of a department manager, James analyzed various issues in the distribution of posters in the following time. While talking, he secretly complained and showed his strength, and at the same time, he did not forget to paint a big picture for Mike. Looking at Mike's young face, and the cheap clothes on him, Manager James was filled with inexplicable confidence. A perfect version of the book in 1619. Yes, from the moment he met Mike and his team, Manager James had been using his superiority to deliberately put pressure on the other party in order to gain enough benefits in the subsequent contract negotiations. This is a common psychological warfare tactic in business negotiations. But this time, James' strategy seemed to fail. As soon as he finished his boasting, Mike spoke calmly and got straight to the point. "So, you haven't told me what my share of the profits will be in this cooperation. In addition, how much are you going to pay me for the portrait fee for the previous issue of the newspaper with my portrait printed on it?" Hearing Mike's sharp question, Manager James felt that he was difficult to deal with. After thinking for a long time, James pretended to be straightforward and said, "How about half? You don't have to do anything, just take a few photos, and you can get half of the net profit from the poster distribution. Of course, don't think half of the profit is too little. I'll help you calculate. With the distribution capacity of the newspaper, at least 100,000 posters can be sold. Even if you only make 1 million yuan from each poster, you can get a reward of no less than 5,000 million yuan. You don't have to do anything, and you get 5,000 million yuan for free. You've made a lot of money. After talking about the poster profit issue, manager James changed his tone and continued in a low tone. As for the newspaper portrait fee, unfortunately, we have never had this expense. Even if we have, I'm afraid we should pay Frank of the Houston team first. James, who started with a serious tone and made a little joke at the end of the topic, returned to his usual fake smile on his face. Pulling and stepping, this is probably another new negotiation technique. And Frank mentioned in James' words is the quarterback of the Houston football team, the league champion team last year. Frank is a tall and strong man with a fierce playing style and excellent skills. He is a star player in the championship team. After the spring invitational tournament began, except for Mike's headline on the state newspaper last week, the headlines of other times were almost all occupied by this star player of the championship team. And this player Frank, like a chosen one, is regarded by many Texans as the future star of Texas. Of course, with all the halos, he also has his own shortcomings, that is, his poor appearance. Therefore, many issues of newspapers with James's pictures as the selling point did not attract consumers to repurchase. Chapter 249 Negotiation. Half the profit is too low. After hearing the share ratio given by James, Mike shook his head and looked at the little Sheldon beside him. The folder in his arms was a reorganized newspaper information based on the opinions of 3 people including Mike and Peggy. It recorded the financial status of the newspaper in recent years and the budget cost of the newspaper. Seeing Mike's eyes, little Sheldon knew it was time for him to show off. He adjusted his small bow tie, stood up and walked to the manager's desk, and said like a little adult, "First, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sheldon Lee Cooper. I'm only on behalf of my client Mike to make the following statement." At this point, little Sheldon glanced at James behind the desk, then opened the folder in his hand and continued. "According to the information we have collected, the material costs and labor costs of the newspaper's distribution are less than 20% of the newspaper's profits. The following are the specific data of the newspaper's profits in recent years." Manager James, who originally thought it was just a child playing, listened to the data reported by little Sheldon, and his expression became more and more solemn. You know, as a department manager of the newspaper, he may not know as much about the total funds of the newspaper as little Sheldon. Similarly, with a professional vision, he had to admit that the information collected by Mike and others was very comprehensive and accurate. This situation is tantamount to someone having a good understanding of the newspaper's bottom line. Little Sheldon at the desk also enjoyed the feeling of being in control of the overall situation. After analyzing the profit data of the newspaper, he seemed to have completed a major task, and his face unconsciously took on a proud expression. Finally, he concluded, "Therefore, according to the profit of the newspaper, it can be known that the distribution of posters can also get 80% of the net profit. Based on this situation, I think it is fair for Mike and the newspaper to each take 40% of the profit. The production cost of the poster is not high, and the most important thing is the distribution channel. And the newspaper just happens to have an advantage in this area. No, you underestimated the labor cost." Manager James, who was exposed, was a little excited. He looked at Mike, who was calm, and said, 10% net profit. This is the biggest concession I can make. You don't have to do anything, and you will have nearly 10,000 yuan of income. The process seemed to have reached the negotiation stage. Little Sheldon knew that he was not good at this, so he closed the folder and sat back on the sofa silently. 10,000 yuan is not a small amount for any high school student. Obviously, Manager James was anxious. He wanted to use a large amount of money to paralyze Mike. But his idea was obviously going to fail. Mike, who had made a few small profits in the stock market, was not an ordinary high school student. Although 10,000 yuan was not a small number for him, it was not enough to surprise him. 10% profit is still too little. I can make more money by issuing posters myself. Today is different from the past. Mike, who has gained some fame from newspaper distribution, can make money by himself using this wave of fame. The difference may be that the process is a little more troublesome. Therefore, Mike, who has a way out, seems to be very confident in the negotiation. Don't forget that the newspaper company snatched the poster business from Jack. At worst, Mike can go back and cooperate with the other party. This situation is completely a seller's market. Manager James, who thought he had the advantage of newspaper distribution channels, realized that he had shot himself in the foot when he saw Mike's calm expression. The star-making plan was like making wedding clothes for others. 20% profit, no more. Poster distribution is an opportunity for newspapers to make extra money. In order not to lose this opportunity, Manager James can only reluctantly give up some more profits. 20% profit is equivalent to 20,000 yuan. The Cooper family, who had just entered the middle class, were surprised to hear the profit. They were happy that Mike had made money. 20%? Still not enough. Facing the manager's painful expression, Mike shook his head again calmly. 20% profit obviously still did not meet his expectations. The mall is like a battlefield. Seeing that Mike was still not satisfied, Manager James's eyes flashed with ferocity, as if he wanted to eat people. However, considering that his fat body could not suppress Mike and his group, the manager forced himself to regain his sanity. Then, after thinking for a long time, he gritted his teeth and said, 2.5% share. This is the newspaper's final bottom line. Of course, to get this share, Melford's next opponent must be Houston High School, which ranks first in Texas. As a businessman, James's mind turned quickly, and he thought of making the pie bigger. At the time when the Super Bowl just ended, Zao TV would broadcast every invitational game of the league's top team for ratings. In this case, if Melford can have a televised invitational match with Houston High School, no matter what the result is, Mike's popularity will be further expanded. In this way, the market for poster distribution will also expand. Houston High School? As the head coach of the Melford football team, George certainly wants to compete with the state's top-ranked team. Hearing the manager's request, he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "Yes, if we can reach an agreement, the newspaper will also help behind the scenes this time and try to promote your match with Houston High School." Manager James tempted. He seemed to see George's love for football, so he also wanted to start from this point and regain the initiative. A perfect version in the 16-9 book bar. This. Coach George was really moved, and he looked at Mike eagerly. After all, whether this cooperation can be achieved depends mainly on Mike's intention. It's just that the match with Houston High School is not so easy to reach. As far as Mike knows, the opponents of the Houston High School Invitational are generally the top-ranked teams in other large states. The top team in the state will often prefer the strong teams in other states, so that the team's influence will be more likely to expand to other states. Facing the expectant eyes of Coach George, Mike shook his head slightly. Then he looked at Manager James and said, "I can only say that we will try our best to apply for the invitational tournament with Houston High School. As for the portrait fee of the newspaper, I can also ignore it. But I want 30% of the profit share of the poster distribution. This is my final opinion. If the newspaper does not agree, then there is no need to discuss this cooperation." Just as Manager James said, for a department like a newspaper to operate, it needs to use human relationships. A lot of extra funds will be consumed after a series of checkpoints. In this case, it is not realistic for Mike to share the profits of poster distribution with the newspaper. It's just that the labor consumption cost is the newspaper's own internal matter, so although Mike is willing to make concessions for this, the 30% profit ratio is also his bottom line. At this time, the problem is thrown back to the newspaper. If Mike takes more share, the people in the newspaper will get less money. But the share ratio Mike offered was very subtle, and the newspaper could still get some benefits, but not much. Seeing Mike's attitude of breaking up, Manager James had no choice but to take a step back and said, "Your request is too strict, but if you are willing to continue to hand over the poster distribution in the second half of the year to the newspaper, I can agree to your request." Negotiation is a process of mutual compromise. Like reporter Jack, Manager James chose to bet on Mike's future. It can be predicted that when Frank, the star player of Houston High School, graduates in the second half of the year, the next rising star in Texas is likely to be Mike. At that time, with all the halos in his body, the profit he can produce will only be higher. Manager James, who already knew that he could not control Mike, could be regarded as making a good relationship with the other party in advance. Sure enough, those who consider the position of newspaper manager must not be mediocre. However, Mike is not at a disadvantage to cooperate with a unit like a newspaper with a huge distribution channel. So, he looked at Manager James and said with a smile, "Then I wish us a happy cooperation so far. The cooperation plan between the two parties has been basically reached." Chapter 250, Building Momentum. Next, Manager James called Lisa, the little secretary, in and printed out a new contract according to the conditions agreed upon before. "Okay, Mr. Mike, you can go take your poster photo now. There is a professional team waiting for you outside." After the contract was signed, James wanted to see him off. When he saw Mike's face now, he felt that a lot of small money had left him. In addition, Lisa's behavior of peeking at the other party from time to time also made the greasy Manager James feel a blockage in his chest. Well, goodbye, Manager James. Mike, who had achieved his expected goal, did not care about James's little mood. After he smiled and waved to the other party, he left the manager's office with Grandma Connie and her group who came to help. After Mike's figure disappeared, Manager James seemed to be exhausted, lying on the leather chair and taking a long breath. He looked pale and sweaty on his forehead, and he looked more tired than running 3 kilometers. It must be said that interest negotiation is sometimes a physical job. Then, feeling dry in the mouth, he grabbed the coffee cup on the table and wanted to replenish some water. But when the coffee was handed to his mouth, James seemed to remember something. Elegant? Civet coffee? Go to hell. Whoever likes to drink this civet coffee can drink it. Lisa, make me another cup of coffee, the most ordinary kind. After putting the civet coffee back on the table with an ugly face, Manager James instructed the secretary. Are you sure you want ordinary coffee? The secretary, who was sorting out the documents, looked at James in surprise and asked for confirmation. You know, Manager James, who is self-righteous, always drinks high-end coffee. Sure, ordinary coffee in the employee coffee room will do. Manager James, who was pale, had a tendency to blacken his face again. Okay, I'll go right away. Seeing the boss's black face, the secretary curled her lips and turned to leave the office. Mike, after leaving the office, met his old friend reporter Jack again. Obviously, this time the poster shooting work was handed over to the other party again. It was past lunchtime. Jack looked at the mechanical watch on his wrist and invited, "Would you like to try our employee meal? Although the taste is average, it is cheap. It is not difficult to see that due to work arrangements." Reporter Jack also missed his lunch. "Try the work meal when you have a chance. I will treat everyone to a meal today." Mike, who was about to earn extra money, generously took on the task of treating. After all, Connie's grandmother and her group had accompanied him for a long time, so he should be rewarded. Moreover, Jack apologized and gave him some inside information before. It was reasonable for Mike to treat him to lunch. "That's right, I know there is a civilian restaurant nearby. The quantity is large and the taste is good. It is very suitable to taste it now." Jack smiled and did not refuse Mike's kindness. So, together with the 2 men behind Jack, a team of more than a dozen people walked out of the state radio station office building. As an old employee, reporter Jack was very familiar with the environment around the radio station. He led everyone to quickly find the civilian restaurant. The decoration of this restaurant did not look very good, but the aroma of the food was very strong. Moreover, because of the affordable prices, there are still many customers in the store even after the meal time. Large portions of barbecue, fruit pizza, vegetable salad. After helping everyone order food skillfully, Jack asked the store for a few cans of local specialty beer. With the presence of Grandma Connie and George, 2 drunkards, the dining atmosphere later was very harmonious. After a few glasses of beer, reporter Jack and the 2 staff members around him became friends with the Cooper family. Reporter Jack also took advantage of the mealtime to discuss with Mike about the poster shooting. However, as he drank more and more beer, Jack seemed to be drunk and unconsciously complained about his current situation. He originally wanted to develop in the TV department, but for some reason he was transferred to the newspaper department. Although his position was promoted to team leader, Jack, who had some ideas, was still planning to return to the TV department. Therefore, he did not hesitate to give up the profits from the poster issuance and only focused on his star-making plan. He swallowed his anger in order to make achievements quickly so as to create opportunities for himself to return to the TV department. In this situation of being in KO's camp, but with his heart in Han, it is not difficult to understand why he betrayed James before. I have long disliked James for being incompetent and pretending. Now that I can speak my mind, I feel much better. At the end of the meal, Jack, who had complained a lot, came to his senses. He promised the 2 employees who followed him, "Don't worry, I will take you with me when I return to the TV department. The development prospects of the TV department will definitely exceed those of the newspaper." The 2 TV station employees who had this understanding also expressed that they would work hard with Jack. Although helpless, if you want to get promoted in the system, it is inevitable to form cliques. Jack, who had bribed a wave of his subordinates, seemed to be in a much better mood. Later, seeing that Mike and others had stopped eating, he suggested, "Okay, let's go back to work. Finish early and get off work early." A sumptuous lunch for more than a dozen people cost less than 200 yuan in total. This civilian restaurant is indeed worthy of the word civilian, and its main feature is affordability. Later, in the professional studio of the TV station, Mike tried to shoot posters in various styles such as sports style, student style and western cowboy style according to the requirements. You are really enviable. Even if you become a model, when you don't have a job in the future, you won't starve, Jack said with a smile, while watching the finished effect. It must be said that professionals are professionals. At this moment, the camera is a group of sports style photos. Mike's clean and sunny temperament in the photos makes him look like a warm sunflower, exuding the vitality of youth. My task should be completed. Seeing the good effect of the finished film, Mike was also relieved. Changing clothes and posing for more than an hour is actually quite tiring. Okay, these photos of yours will definitely fascinate a large number of young girls. Jack was in a very good mood because the work could be completed so quickly and smoothly. After that, he even suggested that Mike and others should go shopping in the state TV building. After all, the opportunity is rare. A book and a bar with no mistakes. Mike and others who just spent half a day here were not in the mood to visit the TV building. So, the group said goodbye to Jack and set off on the way back. It was about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and everyone finally returned to their homes in the small town of Telford. "It's time for me to go back too." Professor John, who looked a little tired, came to the door of Cooper's house and resigned to everyone. He was devoted to scientific research and was not as active as Grandma Connie. This day, he first went to watch a rugby game and then accompanied everyone to the state TV station for half a day. This amount of activity was also difficult for the old professor. Before leaving, the old man looked at Mike, Sheldon and Peggy and said, "I'm going to start a space research project recently, and I want to try to win the Nobel Prize again. I wonder if you are interested in joining my scientific research team." Well, it seems that Professor John accompanied Mike and others for a day, and he also had his own purpose. With the success of the moon landing plan, the fields of aerospace and outer space exploration are now the hottest projects at the forefront of science. Obviously, Professor John wants to take advantage of this wave of trends and try again before he retires. As a cutting-edge researcher who can resist the temptation of Nobel, what is your aerospace project team specifically researching? Little Sheldon showed a strong interest in joining the Nobel team, researching a new flight formula for aircraft. This is the rocket multi-stage propulsion paper you and Mike published before, which gave me inspiration. Professor John explained with a smile. I'll join after listening to the explanation. Little Sheldon couldn't wait to express his willingness. Very good. Professor John nodded with satisfaction and looked at Mike and Peggy on the side and asked, "What about you?" "I'll listen to Mike." Peggy didn't show too much excitement. Looking at her, it was obvious that she followed Mike's lead. "I need to think about it again." Facing the expectant eyes of the old professor, Mike answered conservatively. Knowing that aliens exist, he is actually not optimistic about Professor John's research project. After all, compared with some alien technologies, human research in the field of aerospace is not outstanding. This is an information gap, which brings disadvantages to ordinary people. On the one hand, blocking the news of the mysterious side does bring stability to society. But on the other hand, it also makes ordinary people live in a dream. This can be regarded as a kind of alternative The Truman Show. It's okay. I'm afraid my research project won't be approved until the second half of the year. You still have a lot of time to think about it, Professor John said patiently. Later, after saying goodbye to everyone again, the old professor rode his bicycle and left the Cooper family. Mike, you're so cool today. In the living room of the Cooper family, George, who was waiting for dinner, discussed what happened today. That's a contract worth tens of thousands of dollars. If it were me, I might have agreed when the manager offered a 10% profit. Yes, for ordinary people, the tangible dollars are much more interesting than studying aerospace projects. Everyone focuses on different things. George, who doesn't have a broad vision, naturally focuses on different issues than super geniuses like Sheldon. Mike, I did think things were simple before. Even with the support of the newspaper, we may not be able to make an appointment for the invitational tournament of Houston High School. Coach George, who sat on the sofa, also reflected on himself. You know, Houston High School, as the first place in the state league last year, naturally has its own pride. That kind of players, even if they have to choose opponents from the local area, will only choose the runner-up team. As for the little-known Melford football team, it is very likely that they have never entered the opponent's site. Coach George was just too excited before, so he did not consider the problem comprehensively. It doesn't matter, just try your best. If it doesn't work out, the league in the second half of the year is also an opportunity for us to show ourselves. After ignoring George's meaningless chat, Mike comforted George. This is indeed the case. The current Melford football team has become a force to be reckoned with. In addition, with Mike as the trump card, Melford is fully capable of winning the first place in the state competition in this year's Summer State League. From this point of view, Houston High School is actually nothing great. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.